Chapter 215. The Scarlet Witch did not expect that, even though she had deleted her existence in the future, she still could not escape the fate of death. She was supposed to reappear after disappearing for 2 hours and 1 minute, because she had cut off her time from the universe for more than 2 hours. But peeking into the future showed that as soon as she disappeared, she would be completely erased from this world. Amidst the infinite possibilities, without any warning, without any room for change, she welcomed the arrival of darkness. The whole attack is divided into 2 stages. The first stage is non-existent time, which is the 2 hours and 1 minute that I cut off. During this time, I no longer exist in this world. The second stage is reflowing time, which is the time when I leave the non-existent state and die. The Scarlet Witch drew the timeline of the whole thing in her mind, and then locked the problem on the second stage, because she was convinced that no one could hurt someone who did not exist. The arrival of darkness is 1 minute and 18 seconds after the start of the second stage. My state of time is exactly 2 hours and 1 minute ago, plus the time when I disappeared. It is actually the same time as the last time. There are 2 possibilities. Either he killed me with some kind of spiritual illusion after I appeared, or he killed me in 1 minute and 18 seconds. Because I cut off more than 2 hours of time, he killed me 2 hours later. When I reappear, because of the space-time maze, there are 2 me. One is dead, and the other will die in 1 minute and 18 seconds. So I won't appear and will lose my perception in 1 minute and 18 seconds. The Scarlet Witch had to admit that things were developing toward the worst situation. Based on the current direct probability, whether she raised her hands to surrender and ushered in the dimensional reduction catastrophe 10 years later, or fought back and died in 1 minute and 18 seconds, the outcome was hopeless. The situation had developed to the worst point, although for the Scarlet Witch, it was somewhat ridiculous. But it had been proven that even a magic of chaos could not change this fact. If it was the original Scarlet Witch, she would definitely be helpless, but after being swallowed by chaos. The Scarlet Witch really had the possibility of breaking free from this fate. The current ability of the Scarlet Witch could only manipulate the magic of chaos to distort the present reality to change the future. She could not change the time and space that had been determined in the past, and the ability of the magic of chaos could only change the first cause, which was the logical pattern of cause-effect. He could change the cause and obtain the result, or he could directly change the result and create the cause. On top of that, there was the second and third cause, which was the cause repeated distortion. With her original ability, she could only change the outcome of the future. But the third cause would give her not only the ability to change the outcome of the future. Furthermore, it was a heaven-defying ability to know the result of the second cause based on this result. Just like flipping a coin to make a choice, the original Scarlet Witch could distort reality and choose any outcome, heads, tails, or anything else. But now, not only would she know the outcome of any future, she would also know the outcome of the future after she distorted reality. The difficulty of processing light information would increase by several levels, not to mention the fact that he could go back to the past. The ability to distort reality by changing the cause of the past. The Scarlet Witch, who possessed the power of chaos, had countless opportunities to change the future. In theory, she was omniscient. It was omnipotent. Every time she distorted reality, it would cause the probability cloud in the future to change, and it would give her another chance to find the result she wanted, until it locked onto the one and only perfect world line. Walter separated the futures one by one and carefully screened them. Looking at Chun Ang's half-smile on the screen, she had a subtle premonition in her heart. She felt that everything she did was under the control of that man. It was as if he was also in this infinite space and time, distorting the probability cloud and twisting every possibility into the direction he wanted. In the space-time illusion, she directly distorted the entire world. If she couldn't change Chun Ang, she might as well create a new world line. Find a future without Chun Ang lock onto the effect of Chun Ang's non-existence, and let the world provide the cause. The mutant Franklin created a new universe. In just 3 days, the four horsemen of the apocalypse appeared there, and then this small universe that was in a lower latitude than the real universe became a new project of the apocalypse experiment. All the mutants were still imprisoned in that low-latitude universe. The cause of Chun-Ang's non-existence couldn't be established, but at this moment, the Scarlet Witch was no longer worried. She believed that the future had infinite possibilities. No matter how powerful Chun-Ang was, as long as there was a future that wasn't in his control, she could make that future come true with the power of chaos. Chun-Ang was like a boss in a single-player game that could be saved countless times. No matter how powerful he was, in front of the Scarlet Witch who could be reborn countless times, he would inevitably be defeated. What's more, this player didn't save the game, but directly locked the game through the game's backend. And the universe was destroyed by the power of the Phoenix, and the apocalypse restarted the universe. The universe was destroyed by the five gods, and the apocalypse restarted the universe. The universe was destroyed by the Hulk, and the apocalypse restarted the universe. The universe was shaken by Magneto, and the apocalypse restarted the universe one by one, crazy, subverted to the impossible, and finally ushered in destruction, either at the hands of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, or by mutants or other powerful existences in the universe. But it was useless. Every variable was locked on to an ultimate program for destruction. Then the apocalypse appeared. The first and last mutant, the one named by Chun-Ang, always came out to clean up the mess. Everything returned to nothingness, and then everything was born again, and the universe started again. This was the ultimate defense of Chun-Ang's laboratory. In order to prevent unexpected accidents from happening in the experiment, the experimenters would usually introduce the accident into a prepared and fixed program. This kind of situation was usually the simplest destruction program, destroying the universe and burying all kinds of accidents. Then, the experiment would restart. The four horsemen of the apocalypse usually performed the program, and sometimes the apocalypse would do it himself, but Chun-Ang always watched from the sidelines because the destruction program was also part of the experiment. The player's Scarlet Witch opened the cheat program, but found there was no happy in this game. All endings led to destruction or control. The developer of the game program, Marvel. The cracker of the game program, Chun-Ang. The runner of the game program, Apocalypse. Jumping in the endless timelines, the Scarlet Witch frantically searched for all kinds of different possibilities in this world, but it was as if there was a ghost staring at her. As long as the world exceeded the normal plot, it would all be destroyed, and the only plot that Chun-Ang gave was the reduction of the dimension of the universe. The world that Scarlet Witch experienced exhausted countless possibilities in the future. S.H.I.E.L.D's Sentinel program was successful. The Avengers split into two camps. Loki framed Thor, triggering a war between Asgard and Earth. The Avengers teamed up with Skynet to fight Ultron. Thanos collected 6 Infinity Stones and came to Earth. But the Slim Hope did not appear at all. So 10 minutes after the Chaos magic was fully activated, Scarlet Witch's Chaos side chose to self-destruct, and the personality infected by Chaos gave up trying and returned to Chaos. In front of Magneto and others, Scarlet Witch opened her eyes again and pushed away the large group of people who wanted to help her. She glanced at the world blankly and suddenly asked Chun-Ang, "Are the possibilities of the future really infinite?" Chun-Ang nodded and said, "Yes, but there's a limit to what you can see, and the possibilities you can see are not infinite. So even in the infinite possibilities, I can't get rid of your control. Our level of life is the same, but the volume is different. The world line that you can cover is already under my control. We are like shadows covering time and fate. The reason why you failed is that you have never walked out of my field. My future is broader than yours." Scarlet Witch smiled sadly and looked at Chun-Ang and said, "This is not all the future I can create. There is another choice that I have not tried and will never be able to repeat. I choose death, because only the future after her death could not be distorted by chaos magic, and it was the only ending that she did not expect. She didn't care whether it was under Chun-Ang's control or not. She only cared that it was not under her control." Chapter 2:16 After the personality infected with chaos self-destructed, Walter's personality regained control of the body. But in the face of a hopeless future, she chose to die and let everything lead to an unknown ending. Screech. Chenong watched in surprise as Walter slowly lost his breath. He could feel Walter's memories, emotions, and everything that made up her personality being actively infected by Dakin in the form of meme. This caused a subtle change in Dakin's temperament. The aura on his body became more and more like Walter's. Even though this change was very small, it still did not escape Chen-Ang's eyes. Absorbing other people's personalities? Chen-Ang analyzed it curiously and found that it seems that Dakin's ability is not imitating other people's personalities, but a kind of inheritance and absorption. I thought Scarlet Witch was finished this time. I didn't expect there to be more. Using the ability of Skynet, Chen-Ang rebuilt a Walter's personality, including extremely detailed memories, simulated emotions, and in a short period of time, just now, he deconstructed Walter's overall information, including thinking patterns, value orientations, basic concepts, and logic. It's just that this personality was seriously contaminated by chaos. Because Chen-Ang knew more about the chaotic Scarlet Witch, the personality he constructed, basic thinking, and logic were in serious conflict with humans. In the eyes of humans, such a personality could be called extremely anti-human and crazy. It's very similar, but the essence is completely different. The personality absorbed by Dakin is completely different from the one I simulated. If I force this personality into Dakin's head, he will definitely go completely crazy because of mental pollution, but he will definitely not be able to retain Scarlet Witch's abilities. But now, Dakin has begun to come into contact with Walter's abilities. Chen-Ang was testing Dakin's abilities, but the group of mutants opposite him had recovered from the shock. In their view, everything in these few minutes was too inexplicable. Walter inexplicably went crazy. Quicksilver was strangely frozen by time stop, and then without saying a word, the crazy Scarlet Witch committed suicide in front of Chen-Ang. One completely unexplainable change after another suddenly happened, leaving most of the mutants confused, except for Magneto and a few others. The others did not notice that this was a battle of life and death that had happened in the past, the future, and the present. It had traversed the endless space-time and universes. Although there wasn't the slightest bit of smoke and fire, the danger was far greater than close combat. Those who understood would naturally be shocked and fearful, but those who didn't even have the qualifications to understand Chen-Ang. It was hard to say what role it would play in the upcoming battle. In this game of chess, Chen-Ang was not only the player, but he also served as the referee and rule maker. In this game of chess, his golden finger was unparalleled. On the other side, Magneto, Professor X, and a few others could be considered players on the other side. As for the rest of the people who were confused and ignorant, they were just chess pieces that the chess player had casually picked up. The few who could see how terrifying Chen-Ang were, in the original world, the main characters. Only then could he be called a robbery material. Although these people couldn't see the danger that had just happened, they still had some eyesight. At least they knew that Chen-Ang, who could force the Scarlet Witch to death in an instant and imprison Quicksilver, was not someone they could provoke. Therefore, although these people were trembling with anger, they suppressed their killing intent. Only Dakin couldn't hold back the burning anger in his heart. He was the son of Professor X. Because of his split personality, his emotions and thinking were very chaotic, and he often showed dangerous aggression. But this was only the influence of his split personalities. In essence, he was the same as Professor X. They were both gentle and kind people. Therefore, he didn't have anyone particularly close to him among the mutants. Only Walter gave him a feeling of empathy. He tried his best to save Walter's life in his arms, even at the cost of giving birth to a new personality. Why can't I save her? A white doctor's uniform appeared on Dakin. The doctor wore glasses and looked up to ask Chen-Ang, "I'm the best doctor. There's no one I can't save." Chen-Ang raised his eyebrows. He was slightly surprised. Is it because of the strong emotions that triggered the new personality? Chenong noticed the white light on Dakin's hand. It seemed to hide an extremely strong life force. This personality is a doctor, and its ability is healing. Seeing the twisted anger in the doctor's eyes, Chenong couldn't help but relax for a moment. Are the split personalities also affected by the main personality's emotions and memories? No. It should be said that part of the personality is controlled by the main personality. The weaker and less complete the personality, the stronger the control. After all, most personalities are created because of the main personality's wishes and emotions. Angel also walked in front of Walter, cut her blood vessels, and let the glowing blood sprinkle on her body. Under the joint efforts of the Doctor personality and Angel, some of the small wounds on Walter's body healed in the blink of an eye. Her face also became ruddy and healthy, but no matter how strong the vitality of the cells was, Walter never had a trace of life. In order to save Walter, a personality with healing ability was created. Chenong could see that Dakin's healing ability was constantly improving. He could guess that it was because of the perfect personality. The Doctor personality was constantly shaping his own personality, memory, and emotions. Chenong even knew who he was learning from. It was the angel next to him. Dr. Dakin's temperament, small actions, and even abilities were constantly approaching that of an angel. But no matter how hard Dakin tried, Walter never had the consciousness to open his eyes. He even tried to make Walter's heart beat again, but it was all in vain. "Stop it," Magneto sighed. "Walter has lost all brain activity. Without brain waves, what you can save is just an empty shell." Angel heard this, and the wound on his hand healed silently. He shook his head with a gloomy expression, trying to comfort Dakin, who was starting to become mentally unstable. The group of doctors carefully laid Walter's body on a flat layer of ice, allowing Neptune's snowstorm to freeze her. The doctor's emotions did not change much. Like a doctor who had seen life and death, he said with slight regret, "We've tried our best." Whether it was Magneto, Angel, or Chenong, they all knew that he was saying this to the real group in this body. After saying that, the personality collapsed. The large group returned to that muddle-headed state. Chenong knew that he was giving birth to a new personality, not the old personality hidden in his body, because whether it was Personality X who manipulated reality, it was different from the old personality. Time-manipulating personality private and K's, self-replicating personality chains, Personality Lewis who manipulates atoms, or evil personality Sty who absorbs souls. A telepathic Kara fan. None of them could kill Chenong. These personalities could not satisfy the crazy killing intent in the large group's heart. He wanted to kill Chenong. No matter the price, he had to kill Chenong. He wanted to create a personality strong enough to kill Chenong. Such a strong personality needed complete emotions, detailed memories, and even a stronger personality and thinking pattern than the normal personality. Even the will and mind had to be beyond ordinary people, even far beyond the main personality. Creating such a personality had the risk of devouring the main personality, but Dakin was willing to make this dangerous choice. For this, he had to pay a high price. Kill himself. "I really want to kill you." The tongue of the large group suddenly became very long. But very quickly, it changed back, and the long-tongued personality disappeared. "But I can't do it." The large group bared their sharp fangs. As the fangs disappeared, another vampire personality died. "We are willing to give up our lives for this." Neptune's crust suddenly trembled violently. The large group roared into the sky, and the ice layers thousands of meters deep emitted a loud crash. Neptune set off ice waves hundreds of meters high. Icebergs could be seen rising from the horizon, and the ice sea collapsed under their feet. For a full 4 to 5 minutes, the personality that controlled the movement of the Earth's crust, small purple Godonly, then did the one die. The stronger the personality, the longer it could last. "Even if we all die, you will pay for your actions." The large group controlled the gamma-ray storm in outer space, sweeping across the surface of Neptune. The ability of personality Borges controlled the powerful gamma-ray. The frequency was higher than 1. 5 billion. Hertz's electromagnetic photons carried energy of 300 billion joules per microsecond, shooting toward Chunang's eyes. The radiation dose reached 100 trillion rems, and the temperature was as high as 10 million times the temperature of the sun's core. But in the zero-mass field, where the God particle failed, the rays were easily eliminated by Chunang. Chapter 217. Pain-controlled personality Blee image could control other people's senses and transmit mental information to the other party unilaterally. It could magnify pain. He was like a living voodoo doll. Chunang could feel his injuries 10 times or even 100 times. Thud. Chunang held his chin and looked at him. This is only an incomplete mental connection. Until now, your ability has no secrets in my eyes. If this is all you have, you can't kill me. In the blink of an eye, Chunang had taken control of the spiritual connection between the two of them, forcibly erasing most of their 5 senses. I won't die so easily. Blee image magnified the real feeling of his death countless times and transmitted it to Chunang. Humans were perceptive animals. Such a real feeling could completely deceive the physiological subconscious and cause one's body to die. But Chunang didn't feel it all. It's useless. Even if this feeling is 10,000 times stronger, it's useless. Chunang didn't even disconnect the mental connection. He let the group clearly feel the process of Chunang clearly experiencing the feeling of death. This caused a large number of personalities to die before they could even appear. Don't measure me with your fixed thinking. I'm infinite and multidimensional. In the deepest part of space and time, at the end of your imagination, use your strongest potential and unleash your infinite imagination. Treat me as God, as everything you can imagine. If you don't have the imagination and determination to kill everything, you can't hurt me at all. Attack me with the belief that you can destroy everything. Right now, your power is too weak. Too weak. You can't even give me a trace of pressure or inspiration. Chunang suggested very sincerely. He told the group the method to hurt himself without holding back. This attitude made the group even more crazy. It was hard to say whether it was encouragement or extreme contempt. The consciousness of the personality that controlled atoms descended from the sky and swept across the entire Neptune. His long hair stood up, and a huge invisible force field descended from the sky, shattering the ice land where Chunang was. Looking from hundreds of thousands of miles away, one could see that a small part of Neptune's oval body was first peeled off. Then one of the planets began to collapse until half of the planet broke apart. However, this was only the aftermath of the atomic destruction. It was the high-energy wave spread out from the most destructive attack at the center, destroying the entire planet's molecular structure. At the core where the real Chunang was, the enormous energy tore apart the atomic nucleus, turning matter into ashes. Go to hell. Lucas completely distorted the spatial structure of that place, making it impossible for matter to exist. In the storm caused by the violent fluctuations of gravity, the dust at the core dispersed, and Chunang's figure was surprisingly unscathed. Just destroying matter isn't enough. You need to delve deeper and understand more about this universe. Space, dimensions, force, as well as void and energy. Broaden your horizons. Chunang sneered. No matter how much strength you use to attack a shadow, do you think you can hurt me? I want you to use your imagination. Don't limit yourself to the material world. My existence in your eyes is only a shadow of mine in the material world. To you, your physical body is everything, but to me it's just a shadow. Lucas's next punch pierced through the space in front of Chunang and went through Chunang's body. He could feel the real feeling of his arm piercing through flesh and blood. He could even sense a part of Chunang's existence in the depths of the spatial structure and destroyed that part of space with destructive power. But time was up. Lucas's personality collapsed. The soul-absorbing personality, Sty, appeared. Ty's personality broke through the physical barrier and once again came into contact with Chunang's spiritual wall. The soul-devouring ability was instantly activated, and the spiritual wall was visibly contaminated by this ability. It caused Chun-Ang's soul to wither and his personality to be destroyed. A huge devouring force not only pulled at Chun-Ang's spiritual body, but it also tried to copy Chun-Ang's meme. Chun-Ang's spirit instantly decayed and his soul withered. His physical body turned to ashes, and Chun-Ang, who was opposite Stai's personality, slowly faded and disappeared. You're dead. You're finally dead. The main personality's high vigilance and Stai's arrogance intertwined, making him look like a madman. The main personality no longer looked like a human. His body turned into dark purple energy, and only his eyes looked human. He laughed maniacally, and the ripple of death sent chills down the spines of the onlookers. Just his voice alone made Vulcan, Angel, and the rest feel uncomfortable. They felt like their lives were decaying, and their souls wanted to leave their bodies and enter the main body. Has that person really disappeared? No one dared to confirm it. Therefore, when Chun-Ang's figure slowly appeared, everyone thought to themselves, as expected. No one was surprised. This is also the first time I've seen my body and soul disappear at the same time. At least in this time and space, you've touched the deeper part of my existence. Unfortunately, you can't see me. Without a soul and a body, you can't even notice me in this time and space. It's just this timeline, a plain time version of me. You still have to trace the past and the future, cover the entire timeline, and extend to other timelines forward and forward in the multiverse until you trace all of my past and look into all of my future. Only then will you be able to see a part of me, or rather, a part of me that is complete to a certain extent. Chun-Ang smiled encouragingly. I'll count it as you killing me once. Good luck. At least you've covered my shadow. Impossible. Even though there was still time, Stai, who was abandoned by the main personality, still disappeared in disbelief. The time-manipulating personality, Time, the private personality, struggled out of his body. On the night of the Fantastic Four's battle with Dumb, inside the portal of the Skynet Cube, a hand reached out from inside and pressed on Victor's face. Mr. Fantastic looked at everything in shock. At that moment, a crazy black shadow broke through the void and appeared on the other side of the portal. Time. The private personality's attack shattered the Skynet clone that was enscathed in the sun's core, and space was torn apart. The Fantastic Four exclaimed, "Who are you people?" Dakin looked at them and sighed. "You don't know what kind of demon you've released. He'll destroy the world." At that moment, Dakin felt a hand pressing on the back of his head. The familiar voice rang out behind him. "Is that so? Thank you for telling me this. You're Dakin? Your ability, I want it." From the beginning of everything until now, in the endless space and time, Dakin encountered failure again and again, but he finally saw a part of Chun-Ang's true self. The part of the infinite past that gathered on him represented Chun-Ang's existence in the past, like a behemoth peeking out of the fog. This alone shocked and terrified Dakin's main personality. He was even forced to forget everything he saw in the next second. This was not done by Chun-Ang, but his essence could not bear what he saw. There was also a part of him that Dakin could not detect at all. In the future, when Dakin stepped out of the space-time tunnel, he was evaporated by the golden essence. He could not even remember this, just like he did not explore Chun-Ang's future at all. Time. Chapter 218. Very good. Although you're still far from success, I've seen your progress every single time. Try a little harder, and you'll be able to kill me. Chun-Ang stood in front of the group, his body clean as if he had just cleaned up. Under the attacks of the group of complex personalities and all kinds of magical abilities, he leisurely strolled to the front of the group. He didn't attack, but he put more pressure on the group, because up until now, his attacks had been fruitless, and he even needed Chun-Ang to open his mouth to encourage him. The group's personalities had begun to become chaotic. Sometimes, in a very short period of time, a large number of personalities would switch, and some contradictory characteristics and personalities would begin to appear on the same personality. Sometimes, Chun-Ang would be attacked by several abilities at the same time. This had the effect of 1 + 1 = 2, and the compound ability was even more dangerous, mysterious, and complicated. The telepathic ability combined with any other ability was very powerful, and soon this ability was fixed on the group. This also meant that the group's second personality, caravans, had begun to merge with the main personality. The self-replicating personality chain and the teleportation personality, Fanya, began to merge, followed by super strength and super speed. Hundreds of super personalities flashed through the space. In Chun'ang's hands, the huge difference in gravity was like a white bolt of lightning, flashing in the large group of people that were divided. He set up a lightning net around him, and the dense net cut anyone who tried to pass into pieces of flesh the size of a finger. The real trump card was a split body controlled by Chun'ang. Just like in a myth, Chun'ang's minute control created a petri dish of a field in the void. Then, he performed a cell surgery so fine that it reached the atomic level, presenting a biochemical modification surgery before everyone's eyes in a brief moment. Soon, the biochemical plague accelerated the division of the split body through infection. The deformed monster modified by Chun'ang had a crushing victory over the large group in terms of reproductive ability. In just a few minutes, this kind of hunter that targeted a large group had surpassed the numbers of a large group of doppelgangers. Its powerful infection ability rendered any of the doppelgangers helpless. Soon, as Chun'ang expected, the split body began to be occupied by different personalities. They inherited the large group's ability. Not only did they have the ability to split, but they could also obtain other abilities through creating personalities. Countless of them looked like large groups. In fact, it was not like a large group of splits began to appear, with countless personalities regaining freedom and bodies of their own. Only Chun'ang knew that the main personality of the group was truly at its most dangerous. If these countless personalities tore apart the existence of the main personality, the group would completely lose its sense of self and become a chaotic and crazy split body. He would become a giant monster. It was probably the amalgamation of humanity's craziest, most chaotic, and most epileptic thoughts and personalities. Another chaotic evil god with potential. Chun'ang was very interested. It seemed that the end of every powerful ability was extreme chaos. Those indescribable chaos and madness, in Chun'ang's understanding, seemed to be called the Great Old Ones. Is it because the truth is unknown to human thought patterns? Chun'ang concluded with his own example. Although humans were short-lived, had low intelligence, lacked self-control, and had many flaws in their way of thinking, there was no such thing as a higher level of understanding of human thinking. He had developed from a typical human mind, nor did such a chaotic situation occur. Roar! One of the splits showed signs of beastification. There was no trace of consciousness in its crimson eyes. Its sharp claws and teeth tore apart the other splits that were close to it, and it began to circle around Chun'ang, looking for an opportunity to kill him. Why can't you hurt me? Because you are not crazy enough. Chun'ang continued to provoke the group. You have to be even crazier. Break through the limits of human thinking. Break through the inherent knowledge in your brain. As long as your imagination is unlimited, there is nothing in this universe that can limit you. Chun'ang said loudly. Ask your heart. Ask that extreme madness. What is restraining you? Don't believe him. Among the large group of doppelgangers, among the large group of splits, a female personality suddenly appeared. She tried to stop the collapse of the main personality, just like how any schizophrenic created a personality to protect themselves. In the mind of the large group, there was also such a protector, a personality X who had the personality to manipulate reality. The split body occupied by personality X was a white woman. She used her powerful telepathic ability to suppress the collapse of the large group's personalities, and at the same time, clear the chaos and crazy thoughts in his mind. Help me suppress the main personality. Now, the mental state of the large group is very unstable. He is about to be driven crazy by Apocalypse. Personality X had to ask the others for help. Don't you know what Apocalypse wants to do? Magneto. If the large group goes crazy, Then he will get a test subject that is more dangerous than the four horsemen. If the large group falls into darkness and chaos, he will completely lose his humanity and sanity. I swear it will be more terrifying than Apocalypse. X looked at Magneto and the other mutants and pleaded in despair. Save him. You must save him. Magneto waited indifferently. He was like a poisonous snake, waiting for the moment when Chun-Ong showed a flaw. He did not respond at all to the large group's encounter and X's cry for help. It was as if Chun-Ong was the only one in his sight, but the others couldn't wait any longer. When Chun-Ong reappeared, Vulcan seized what he thought was a good opportunity and controlled the ultra-high temperature flames of tens of thousands of degrees to cover every inch of space where Chun-Ong was. All of the mutants present were the ones with the greatest potential and the strongest abilities. Apart from Lady Stormword and Magneto, who were humans from the old era who grew up in the apocalypse, the mutants present were all mutants. The mutants of a new era despised and feared Chun-Ong, the legendary Apocalypse and Great Demon. They were so confident in themselves that even if Walter and Quicksilver paid the price with their lives, they seized the opportunity and made a move. But soon they learned a lesson in blood. Before anyone could react, Chun-Ong appeared behind Vulcan. The huge pressure of the gravity ball caused Vulcan's ribs to pierce through his lungs. The white bone stubble pierced through his skin and came out of Vulcan's back. Vulcan opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but the surging blood blocked his throat. He could only make a hissing sound. The other mutants weren't shocked for too long. Angel immediately flew over to catch him, cut his wrist again, and fed him the healing blood. The others also reacted in an instant. The last trace of peace was suddenly broken. Everyone, except for Chun-Ong, launched their most cruel attack with Chun-Ong as the target. Blink flew through the deep space. He held the others and provided them with short-range mobility. Shadowcat began to create temporary teleportation doors according to the training, forming a complete space attack formation. It was obvious that the mutants had prepared for this day for a long time. They cooperated well, and everyone used their best abilities. Blink and Shadowcat were the support group. They tried their best to provide the best space structure, control the rhythm and form of attack on the battlefield, and let the other mutants use their abilities effectively. They seemed to know Chun-Ang's ability to control space, so they didn't try to attack through space. Instead, they focused their energy on mobilizing others. Iceman, Vulcan, Stormword, and Polar Light should be the suppression group. They poured their firepower on Chun-Ong and maintained the greatest degree of energy suppression. But what they were doing now was a failure. Vulcan was seriously injured. Iceman lost Walter's support and couldn't use his abilities at all. Stormword was extremely afraid of Chun-Ong. She didn't seem to believe that she could cause any trouble to Chun-Ong. This resulted in only Polar Light being able to use his full strength in the suppression group. He couldn't do anything alone. Without Quicksilver's control and Walter's chaos magic, the choice of probability was fatal to the mutants. Without Walter's ability, most of the mutants couldn't reach their optimal state. They might not be able to control their abilities, and the interference between each other was also very serious. Chapter 219. On Neptune, the mutants were struggling under the control of Chun-Ong, while on Earth 31 astronomical units away, Loki's plot was close to success. Father asked me to stop your madness. Thor looked at his brother through the high-strength glass, and he said helplessly, "Don't let him down, Loki." Let him down? Loki's expression was wild. He showed an evil smile and whispered to Thor, "How can I let him down?" "Thor, no one cares about him more than I do. Aren't I sharing a little burden for him? Since he is so afraid of the earth, let me rule it. Since he wants to stop me, why not come in person? Father doesn't have time. Something big happened in Jordaheim, and he has to deal with it." Thor shrugged and said with some satisfaction. Hearing Jordaheim, Loki couldn't help but stand up straight and focus a little more. He pretended not to care and asked, "What can go wrong there? Did the frost giants come? Or did you cause trouble again? Thor, did you go provoke them again? There are no more frost giants." Thor interrupted him. Loki's hand shook violently, and he asked subconsciously what. Even he was a little surprised. There are no more frost giants. They were all exterminated, and they were all frozen in the iceberg of Jordaheim. Even Jordaheim was blown up. We have checked, there are no survivors, and the last native life on that planet is gone. Thor didn't notice Loki's lost look. Loki's eyes were a little blurred, and he murmured, "There's one more, what?" Thor heard him talking to himself. Loki ignored his question and asked him, "What happened?" "I don't know. It seems that it was done by humans. Father left in a hurry without saying anything, and I didn't go back to Asgard." Thor couldn't give any valuable information. "Humans, huh?" Loki laughed harshly. He laughed exaggeratedly and said, "Do you believe that humans can do this? They can't even get out of their own planet." Thor didn't believe this rumor. The frost giants, who have been fighting against Asgard for nearly 1,000,000 years, may not be a respectable opponent, but they must be a powerful enemy. What about humans? Protected, believers, weak and backward humans. In the eyes of the Asgardians, humans were not a powerful race. Subconsciously, they looked down on these mortals. This was not only the psychological advantage of being revered as gods in history, but also the inherent contempt and neglect that the long-lived species had for the short-lived species. So Thor didn't refute anything. Instead, he emphasized, "Father warned you not to touch Earth. It's very dangerous here. You can't afford to mess with it." After a moment of silence, he said in a somewhat depressed tone, My hammer was lost here. There's indeed something strange about this place. Loki, I will negotiate with the humans and bring you back as soon as possible." Loki replied with a scornful smile. After Thor left, Loki raised his head again, seemingly inadvertently glancing at the camera monitoring him. He was trapped in a high-strength transparent cage, surrounded by strict monitoring. Even if Asgard fought for it, he would have to hand over S.H.I.E.L.'s Tesseract to leave here. But Loki didn't seem to be worried about this. He found a more comfortable corner and slowly sat down against the wall. He opened his 5 fingers and slowly looked at his right hand. It could be seen that his right hand suddenly flashed strangely for a moment. It was as if the light and shadow had been distorted, becoming illusory and thin. Naturally, it couldn't be seen in the surveillance, but as long as one got closer, anyone could tell that it was an illusion. With the power of the mind gem, Loki even hid it from Thor. The real Loki stood at the top of the Stark building, and Dr. Eric was busy debugging the Tesseract's Tesseract. Hidden spatial fluctuations were constantly spreading into the universe, and in the eyes of those dangerous existences, the Earth was now as obvious as a lighthouse. Under the control of Dr. Eric, the powerful power of the Tesseract's Tesseract tore open the barrier of space and transmitted energy fluctuations in all directions. This kind of fluctuation that surpassed the speed of light through the ubiquitous dimensional lines in the void caused a mysterious response from the depths of the universe. On planet Ziritha, thousands of light years away, the Ziritha people stood in front of the portal of light, and the invading troops were ready to pass through the portal in an orderly manner. But what Loki and the Ziritha people didn't expect was that this fluctuation was also transmitted to a mysterious dimension outside the universe. "Chief, we received some strange signals. It seems to come from another world." In the Battle Police dimension, everyone in the Beijing base held their breath as they stared at the information from the other dimension on the light screen. The mysterious signal received by the anchoring device numbered SD 9527 by chance contained key information about the spatial coordinates of that world. "Can we anchor that world?" someone asked excitedly and worriedly. "Yes, this signal seems to be used to invite the establishment of a dimensional portal. The spatial coordinate information is very complete, and we are extracting other information. The other side is providing a lot of energy, and they are inviting us." "Good. The comrades on the other side are so enthusiastic, we can't have stage fright. Order the troops to get ready." Everyone in the base breathed a sigh of relief. The previous few plane anchors of the Dimension Breakthrough Plan were either because the spatial coordinates were fuzzy or the dimensional distance was too far. Of course, the distance here was not the distance in space, but the difference in the laws of the world. The greater the difference, the more difficult it was to enter. At present, The best dimension could only be entered through mental projection. This time, the plane they contacted was very enthusiastic. Not only were the laws of the plane extremely compatible, they even sent the coordinates and provided the energy to establish the portal. It was a little too open. We are getting closer and closer to the dimensional reduction critical point of the apocalypse. If we haven't found a new source of disturbance, we can only enter this world. The scientists and engineering teams of China and the Soviet Union cheered. Without delay, they immediately began to set up the three-phase portal according to the spatial coordinates. In the opposite world, Dr. Eric was already sweating profusely, but Loki still refused to let him go. He asked angrily, why did the progress suddenly slow down so much? The erection of the spatial portal is 9 hours later than the original plan. We don't have time. My doppelganger can't hide from S-H-I-E-L-D for long. But the energy load of the Tesseract cube is approaching its limit. I don't know what's wrong. Loki ignored Dr. Eric's explanation. He pointed his scepter at Dr. Eric's eyes and said coldly, give me all your power. I will give you 5 hours. Only success is allowed. No failure is allowed. The prism surface of the four-pillar spatial portal devours the energy of the Tesseract cube like a bottomless pit. This sudden change disrupted Loki's plan. Originally, it would only take an hour for the army of Zyardar to pour out of the spatial portal. The Avengers and S-H-I-E-L-D would be so busy that they would have no time to find trouble with him. But now, Loki has to find a way to fight for these 5 hours. Chapter 220. The intersection of endless space-time was hidden in the depths of layers of void. Only existences at the level of the 5 great gods of the universe could peek at it, and even Thanatos was a bit lacking. This was the gate of the universe, one of the most important places in the entire world. The three-phase portal from the X-Men world passed through here, opening a gap in the space channel between Earth and planet Kiritha, opening this two-way channel in another direction, opening a portal to another dimension. Shenang's main consciousness was here. He was like an illusory shadow, hidden in the depths of endless space-time, standing at the key point of the intersection of space-time. A few exceedingly powerful consciousnesses that carried a shred of everlasting presence were firmly held in front of the dimensional intersection. Even if the rage of those beings had destroyed an area that was hundreds of thousands of light years across and crushed nearby galaxies, the energies and information in that region were mixed into a blazing sea of chaos. It was impossible for Joshua to do anything about it. Lord of the Apocalypse, you open the space-time gate again, violating the principles and laws of the life court, destroying the laws of the universe and the balance of reality, and will be judged by the life court. On behalf of this universe, we will destroy you completely. Chenong did not care about their anger, but just smiled and said, Eternity, if you could destroy me, you would have done it as early as when the apocalypse first came. Star Eater, death, eternity, infinity, and annihilation. You represent the sum of matter, life, space, time, and non-existence of this universe. But as long as you have not surpassed this multi-body universe, you will always be restrained by the apocalypse. The apocalypse is waking up, and the 4 horsemen will follow him back to this world. It seems that it has been too long, so long that you have forgotten the fear of being dominated by them. A more obscure consciousness with an obscure aura that could wither the soul replied, The Death Knight is mixed in my consciousness, and I can't use my power at all. Otherwise, it will cause a violent conflict of consciousness and even obliterate my self-consciousness. The Death Knight is purer than my consciousness, closer to death. Star Eater, it's up to the 4 of you. Matter Skynet is also very troublesome. The consciousness replied slowly, I have not recovered from the damage caused by the last war. Annihilation's consciousness fluctuated slightly. From the previous battles, even if we could overwhelm the 4 horsemen, we would not be able to deal with the apocalypse. This time, the Tribunal of Life still has to guard against the Lord of Apocalypse who created the apocalypse. On this world line, We have no chance of success at all. Not necessarily. Eternal, you have the deepest understanding of time among us. Do you have any ideas? Eternity was born in the instant of the Big Bang, and it was the materialization of the timeline. His consciousness was almost the future. As long as the 6 infinity gems are completed, the infinity gauntlet can be completed. Time will be out of my control. We might still have a chance. A collection of infinity gems, nemesis, and the power of the phoenix. Just as these consciousnesses were communicating, a vague shadow slowly appeared in the void. The moment he appeared, the 5 universe God consciousnesses avoided this existence, not daring to peek at the intersection of time and space. In the sky above the X-Men universe's Beijing base, an invisible plane was separated by a huge ring composed of more than 190 satellites. Spacecraft engraved with the Soviet flag slowly floated from the Vladivostok base. Densely packed cannons like hedgehogs all over the body of the ship. The huge spacecraft battle group was like a mountain range in the sky, visible from Alaska to Lhasa. The Soviet comrades are too overbearing. This is the first contact with another dimensional civilization. How can they set the Star Destroyer cannon and vacuum shock bomb to active state? The chief of the base could not help but frown when he saw the cannons of the spacecraft. A city-level cosmic battleship has firepower at least 1,200 times more than normal. This definitely does not meet the standard of carrying people. The Soviets can't wait to dismantle the cabin and install energy weapons. The core furnace must be overloaded at least 3 times. Isn't this nonsense? The Soviet Union has a small population, and the newly reclaimed Central Asia only has a little more than 200 million people. They don't need so much transport capacity. It's understandable to increase firepower. Even so, they can't dismantle the phase shield. I think the Soviets want to carry out saturation and unlimited attacks first. Didn't the Cosmic Ethics and Sociology Research Center say the principle of destruction first? I think the Soviets believe in this. The bureau chief shook his head and said, the first contact theory based on the 3 main inferences? When interstellar civilizations develop to the extent of mutual contact, their technology is bound to be diverse. Each civilization is definitely ahead of other civilizations in what they are best at. This conclusion is too absolute. There are no 2 identical leaves in the world. There are no 2 identical civilizations in the universe. The differences between interstellar civilizations will reach a level where they cannot understand each other. To other civilizations, the other party's technology and culture are like magic. They have the absolute priority in their field and the absolute lead. These are 2 characteristics. Therefore, every first contact civilization, they can destroy the other party first. With the advantage of information, they can destroy the first contact civilization at the lowest cost. Someone sighed and said, the Soviets really believe it. The base suddenly quietened down. Looking at the fleet in the sky, the staff in the base felt a chill down their spines. They seemed to have thought of something terrible at the same time, and their faces were filled with horror and fear. Someone couldn't help but scream, they can't do this. This is a crime. We don't even know what kind of existence the other civilization is and what their attitude is. To attack them with this theory of destruction, first contact, is simply anti-human. This kind of provocative and aggressive attitude will never achieve peace. The military representative hurriedly explained, we are not Nazis. We are just being prepared, that's all. Someone replied with a sneer, for the survival of mankind. This is the price we must pay. We don't have time. The apocalypse is pressing us. If we don't want to be slaves to the apocalypse, we must be determined. How much can we pay for this? I remember this is a topic that has been discussed. But that is a human sacrifice, not a massacre of innocents. That's even better. Are the lives of a few aliens more important than the lives of our people? If the 3 major powers on Earth, the United States, China, and the Soviet Union, don't know each other's information, then in such an information black screen, whoever has the information first will have the ability to destroy the other party. Even the most powerful United States will be destroyed by civilizations weaker than it under the information black screen. If there is no price to pay to destroy the other party, who can resist such a temptation? No one could answer. In the theory of first contact, the strange civilizations in the universe were like people with guns. The one who fired first would have an absolute advantage. The one who had the information advantage could easily destroy the civilization in front of him. Even if the two civilizations gave up on attacking each other in the first contact, the suspicion brought about by the advantage of mutual destruction still put peace in jeopardy. This chain of suspicion in the prisoner's dilemma still put peace in jeopardy. Just as the atmosphere between the two opposing factions became tense, a loud shout calmed both sides down at the same time. "Stop arguing." The person in charge of the Beijing base stood up and looked around the hall. He saw many complicated and indescribable gazes, as well as some emotions that even they themselves could not understand. Everyone here was confused about the future. No one knew what they would encounter on the other side. Was it survival and development, or war and destruction? The bureau chief slowly said, "The situation on the other side has been projected by the dimension detector. Everyone can take a look." A video started playing on the big screen. A densely packed army neatly lined up behind the teleportation portal. The ferocious Chitauris held their ray guns with bloodthirst and fanaticism in their eyes. The snake-shaped spaceships and various war machines were aimed at the exit of the teleportation portal. There were traces of war everywhere. Everything showed that peace was no more. There was only war in the future, and it had to be war. Everyone present fell into silence. All arguments had dissipated. Humans did not need to make difficult choices. But even the staunchest humanist faction could not feel happy. This meant that the future was full of blood and fire. Chapter 2:21. On planet Chitauri, thousands of light years away from Earth, a teleportation gate made up of 6 metal rings stood on the plains. The rings were nested layer by layer. Just the diameter alone was a few thousand meters high. Hiss, hiss, outside the huge teleportation gate, the Chitauri army was like a giant beast sitting on the plains. Tens of thousands of steel snake-shaped spaceships were floating in the air. Even though there were millions of soldiers, they could still hear the whistling sound of the wind passing through the steel rings. The Chitauri were considered a powerful, brutal, and arrogant race in the wider universe. There's something wrong with the space-time gate. That useless Loki. A Chitauri with half of his face covered in a cloak sneered. He had the usual fierce aura of their race. The wind that was brought up by his walk had a bloody smell. On the light screen in front of the Chitauri researchers, the value that represented the stability parameters of the teleportation gate soared. They were so anxious that they were sweating profusely. A researcher who seemed to have some status looked at the curve on the light screen that was out of control and said anxiously, "The other side seems to be opening a second teleportation gate. We've contacted Loki. It's not him. It might be the work of humans." "The other side? Isn't that Earth?" the cloaked man said in surprise. But he quickly came back to his senses. He looked at the teleportation gate that was releasing energy and laughed. "The Earthlings are actually trying to open the teleportation gate to the Chitauri. They're courting death. I've never seen a race that greedy to this extent. They're as weak as insects, and they're actually trying to invade our planet." Ha ha ha. The surrounding cheetahs all burst into laughter. Hiss, 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 weak and stupid races don't have the right to live in this world. The cloaked man said loudly. He took out the saber in his hand and pointed it at the teleportation gate and roared, "Soldiers, follow me and crush those insects." The Chitauri soldiers roared, "Crush them." All the Chitauri soldiers had ferocious and excited expressions on their faces. They grinned and wiped the ray guns in their hands. They were thinking about how to conquer that weak planet and start a massacre on it. There were also a few slave merchants in the universe who were bowing at the side. They were smiling and discussing the sale of Earth slaves with the Chitauri officers. The Zataris are a military race, technological and cultural. Their economy was based on their powerful military strength. In other words, they were not a race at all, but a professional army of the Thanos. They relied on plundering, conquering other planets and civilizations to plunder their wealth. Selling the natives of the conquered planets to this slave trader was an important source of income for them. Something's wrong. The scholar was a bit uneasy. The other side is trying to seize control of the portal. They're trying to control the portal on our side. What does that mean? The cloaked man didn't care. That means their spatial technology is better than ours. The scholar walker pointed at the curved line on the screen. The two portals have achieved energy flow, even if we cut off the power supply. The Tesseract could also maintain the portal. The spatial warping data is out of our control. Get to the point. The cloaked man's voice made the scholar tremble. The cloaked man seemed to realize that he had frightened the scholar, so he relaxed a little and said, "How will these things affect us?" The scholar skipped most of the content and said simply, "We won't be able to close the portal. So what?" The cloaked man opened his arms and gestured with his back facing the Chitauri army. "Do you think humans can pose any threat to us? We have conquered countless planets and destroyed countless civilizations. Earth is just an insignificant bug in front of them. Destroying them is as easy as flipping a hand." The value representing the spatial warping data on the screen suddenly broke through the red line. A dazzling beam of light rushed out of the portal and rushed into the sky, causing a tremor that overturned a group of people nearby. Dozens of Chitauri warriors were swallowed by the blazing energy beam, clearing an empty space in front of the portal. But this was just a flash of one-way teleportation. It was not a stable portal. After the energy beam dissipated, only an iron-gray metal ball was left there. It was about 1.5 meters in diameter, suspended high above the atmosphere of planet Chitauri. On the outer shell of the metal ball, the light blue traces of the energy beam were very obvious. The red light that represented a warning was constantly flashing, giving off a beep warning sound. The beep became more and more urgent and louder, and soon there was only a continuous beep. "What is this thing?" the cloaked man wondered. But soon he knew. After the red light of the metal ball stopped flashing, it suddenly shrank into a dot and was swallowed by the void. Then, it was swallowed up by the void. With the metal ball as the center, an extremely distorted force field suddenly spread out and swept across the entire atmosphere in the shortest time. Wherever it passed, the void shook. Gravity was chaotic, light was distorted, and any object that came into contact with this transparent force field wave was instantly broken into irregular fragments and shot out in all directions. The snake-shaped spaceship suspended outside the atmosphere was swept by this wave. The huge metal hull suddenly twisted into a fried dough twist. The flesh and blood of the soldiers inside were like crushed oranges spraying out. The blood and meat sauce were evenly sprinkled in the surrounding space. The surrounding space was like a piece of white paper that was crumpled into a ball. The things drawn on it were messed up, broken apart, crushed, and mixed together evenly. Although it did not lose its shape, it crossed the inherent structure of three-dimensional space and was rearranged in a chaotic high-dimensional way. However, in the eyes of others, it looked like it was squeezed into a ball. From the location of the metal ball to the portal in the atmosphere, there was a spherical space with a diameter of 300,000 meters, including most of the area where the Chitauri army was located. It even included a small half of the huge range of the planet. The inherent structure of all matter was completely disrupted. The steel spaceships and small aircraft were twisted into strange shapes and compressed into solid metal balls one after another. The Chitauri soldiers seemed to have been squeezed by a huge gravity, then flattened, rolled up, and squeezed again. It was repeated dozens of times. Their heads and feet were on the same level, and their brains and buttocks occupied a different space. Relatively intact corpses could only be seen a little further away from this area. Due to the gravitational disorder caused by the space shock, some organs were torn apart. All of this happened incredibly fast. 1 second ago, it was the Chitauri army, and the next second, there were corpses everywhere. On the other side of the portal, in the control center of the three-phase portal of the Beijing base, the AI stated in a calm and stiff voice, the space shock bomb has been successfully released. The portal will be stable again in 3 minutes. Preparing the thermonuclear bomb. Preparing the vacuum implosion bomb. Preparing the gravitational deformity generator. Final debugging of the artificial intelligence. Next wave of bombardment troops. The Space Cruise missiles of the 2nd Artillery Unit are in place, beginning the deep space dark matter invisibility. According to the spatial structure information, readjusting the antimatter chain reaction. The humans' contact and precise strikes had achieved effective results for the Drow. What the Chitauri army never expected was that they had been attacked so ferociously before they had even set out. The humans had not sent a single soldier, but they had first launched a wave of close-range strikes according to their own rhythm of war. Derived from the war experience of the Earth era, the humans had dropped saturated firepower at the enemy's assembly point. Chapter 222. The war in the universe was different from any war that humans had ever experienced. In this regard, humans were still students. It took place in the endless universe, with light years as the unit, stars as the battlefield, stars, gravitational fields, planetary belts, and orbits. Hundreds of millions of battleships and automatic weapons fell like dumplings in outer space like scrap iron. The insignificance of the individual and the vastness of the universe were the extreme contrast. Humans had never had such an experience and had never felt the grandeur and cruelty of an interstellar war at such a close distance. The Chitauri had built at least 30 low-Earth orbit bases on their home planet, and the defense system on the planet was even more rigorous and precise. It could be said that the entire planet was a huge war machine. If it weren't for the Chitauri arrogantly opening a portal within the defense system, humans wouldn't have been able to touch their vital points. After the 3-phase portal stabilized, the first to be stationed in was the Republic's engineering team and guards. They were responsible for expanding the portal and building a transit fortress. Then came the 3rd Artillery Unit, who were responsible for hitting the shells into the territory controlled by the Chitauri. Although they were not artillery troops, nor did they use missiles. Everyone felt that the correct name for them should be the Hyperdimensional Expansion Strike Force. Using the spatial technology learned from Apocalypse, they were able to project troops and cannons from the Superdimensional Expansion Strike Force. Their weapons were dimensional transmission devices, which had nothing to do with those ancient weapons called cannons. Through the 3-phase portal that was urgently set up at the original site of the Chitauri's portal as a transit point, the Communist League in outer space directed 1,089 space energy detection and attack satellites in Beijing, Tianjin, Zhengzhou, Tangshan, and other large space transmission bases. They extended dimensional control to the Republic's observation range to achieve the expansion and strike of the hyperdimension. Like the first space shock bomb, the Republic released 80,000 of them in the first round. It was almost half a year's output of the entire Soviet Union. The Chitauri could never imagine how a race could invest so much enthusiasm in developing weapons to kill themselves. Space shock bomb, gravity generator bomb, energy disruption bomb, ultra-high-frequency energy wave, light particle carrier virus, gamma radiation storm. Humanity's endless creativity and imagination in terms of destruction and slaughter was enough to make Chun-Ong gasp in admiration. For the sake of self-destruction, humans have really devoted all of their willpower to create endless brilliance, creating the ultimate brilliance. The harsher the conditions for the existence of life were, the more exciting the methods humans used to destroy and kill life were. Extremely high temperature, super low temperature, supergravity, high radiation, shock waves, dynamic potential energy. Especially after the Republic took the risk of sending an European community team to a near-stellar orbit. The in-depth cooperation of the two allies completed an unprecedented weapon attack that almost destroyed all of the Zeridians. It was a unique energy biochemical weapon, the light particle energy virus, developed by the European Community Research Institute to target the special life form of the Plague Messenger's light quantum entanglement life form, Sephiroth. It used light particles as a carrier. It was a destructive energy construct that could self-replicate using light as a medium and spread in the form of light radiation. It could be said to be unbelievably great. It was an extremely crazy weapon. If it wasn't for the fact that the energy structure was extremely unstable and the virus reproduction period was only 3 minutes, this virus could turn the entire universe's light into a plague that was extremely dangerous to life. Starting from the infection of a star, the light plague would spread at the speed of light. As long as there was a beam of light particles that were invisible to human eyes, the light plague would spread at the speed of light. As long as its mimetic information flow was complete, it could turn a star into a source of infection. Using the coordinates provided by the team as a reference, the European community scientists projected the light particle virus meme onto the star of the Ziridians. It zombified the entire star. The attack lasted for 13 minutes, and the star that the Ziridians were familiar with became the source of the light plague, spreading to the entire star in just 17 seconds. Then it spread to the entire galaxy along with the light radiation. Any Ziridians exposed to the light source began to feel itchy. In a short period of time, this itch turned into pain, and their skin began to fester. The originally harmless sunlight became highly toxic radiation, 173 times more toxic than nuclear radiation. It was composed of the 3 common types of radiation, alpha, beta, and gamma, and the most dangerous type of radiation, omega rays. This compound radiation is highly toxic and has excellent penetration. It can pass through a lead plate 13 millimeters thick and still achieve the effect of a tiny dose of death. It is one of the super viruses developed by the European Union specifically for the apocalypse and Sephiroth. The commander of the Republic of Korea listened to the nuclear radiation expert at the Beijing base. Can you provide specific data on its lethal dose? The expert retrieved the data from the quantum-like computer and explained, take the planet codenamed Zirida as an example. Its radiation at night is 150 million times the lethal dose. Even in a completely sealed underground 200 meters deep, it can kill the Ziridians in 3 seconds. Even if it is a lead plate, it still does not reach a safe radiation range when it is less than 2 meters thick on the surface. Have our soldiers been protected? The commander was concerned about this point. Most of them have withdrawn here, and a small number of soldiers who stayed on the other side have also activated a small space barrier. They will be safe after the radiation danger period is over. The military expert said with slight regret. It's just that the soldiers of the European community have no chance of survival after being exposed to the star's radiation source at such a close distance. They are martyrs. They are the soldiers who have made great sacrifices for the liberation and survival of mankind. The commander sighed. Please express my highest respect to the comrades of the European community for me. Take precautions. As long as the light particle virus infects the light source, it can create a stubborn infection source. Be careful of equipment that can emit light. When you reopen the 3-phase portal, you can use the dimension to reset and reorganize the matter on the other side. The space technology of the Republic is enough to prevent the spread of the light plague. The European community also discovered later that the light virus does not work on space barrier technology. For quantum entangled life, the radiation virus also cannot exert the terrible lethality against carbon-based life. What the European community has developed is a weapon to destroy mankind. The commander nodded and said, the psychological pressure brought to the comrades of the European community and the Soviet Union by the apocalypse is too great. Our research some time ago can already be called crazy. I did not expect that the comrades of the Soviet Union are even more hysterical than we are, and the comrades of the European community are close to losing their minds. The future observation technology of the superluminal non-interference observation device is the last line of defense of the Republic. During this period of time, mankind has researched countless dangerous technologies, each of which has the possibility of destroying civilization. The observation and grasp of the future is to ensure the continuation of the civilization of the Republic and the survival of the human race. The Prophet and the superluminal observation device show normal. The comrades of the Soviet Union request to enter the Zirida system in an hour and launch a general attack. There are no longer any Zirida troops on the other side of the portal that can pose a threat to them. The performance of the Zirida people is too weak. Let the comrades of the Soviet Union take the lead. Chapter 223. When the Allied soldiers set foot on the land of planet Chitauri, there was only a planet shell supported by nanoengineering machinery. The ground was full of high-temperature and high-pressure burning crystals. The entire planet's surface had dropped by more than 120 meters on average. The huge three-phase teleportation gate behind them had been expanded into a low-Earth orbit artificial celestial body. Of course, its mass and material came from the dismantled parts of planet Chitauri. As for the Chitauri, most of them had become part of the crystals under the Allied soldiers' feet. The light plague, a weapon with the goal of extinction, had turned the planet into a land of death. Perhaps only the depths of the Earth and the ocean trenches might have some simple life forms, such as bacteria and algae. The Academy of Sciences was dismantling the equipment left by the Chitauri. Most of it was in outer space. Earth's technological development had exceeded the normal law of development due to Chun-Ang's interference. Humans had too much homework to make up for. Mankind was able to create weapons and technologies that could destroy the heavens and exterminate the Earth, such as the light particle virus and the dimensional teleportation gate. However, the nanomachines were still made from titanium alloy. The higher-grade metal material, adamantium, had attributes that were worlds apart from the basic industrial materials. The disparity had reached a shocking degree. The technology of the Chitauri would be the focus of human technological breakthroughs. It was foreseeable that with the simulation of technology in the virtual low-latitude world, the Republic's speed of catching up wouldn't be slow. A large number of scientists had given up their existence in the higher dimension and inserted their consciousness into the virtual low-latitude world. They made use of the convenient space-time control and reality modification technology to accelerate the development of science and technology. Yang Qi was a scout platoon leader in the Republic. Of course, due to the development of dimensional technology, space-time wars, and interstellar exploration, this type of soldier had a new development. Dimensional soldier. With the personal system of the Republic as their main tool, they were committed to environmental exploration and the development of survivability. Analysis, exploration, disguise, ambush, decapitation, infiltration, construction, and development were all developed. They were known as a one-man army, a high-end soldier of a single civilization. The most basic ability required a space-time beacon to connect to the Republic on a completely unfamiliar planet in space-time. Of course, Yang Qi was still a trainee dimensional soldier. This type of soldier was still being explored and developed. His partner was a Soviet Red Army soldier, Barshak Petrovich Trotsky. Among the three communist countries, the Soviet Union's war technology was the most violent and direct. Barshak's equipment was a 4.2-meter-tall personal armor made of secondary adamantium. More than half of Barshak's body was a cyborg, and most of his body had been modified by metal prosthetics. This made him the only one in the team who could survive in outer space. These Black Star troopers from the Soviet Union had undergone genetic surgery. About 20 superhuman organs were implanted, including a prefabricated stomach-decomposing furnace, a biochemical parietal brain, and a cold core furnace. The troopers who completed the surgery would be over 2 meters tall, and they would only return to normal when they retired. Barshak was over 2.5 meters tall. Even his muscles were made up of muscles. Like most of the muscles in the body, the cavernous body was replaced by artificial high-strength bionic fibers. Such strength and combat power were indeed formidable. However, Yang Qi didn't understand. Did Barshak's reproductive organs still exist? Did he expect them to be used as weapons or food to replenish his energy when he ran out of ammunition? The Supreme Commissar and General Secretary Yuri fired more than 1,000 nuclear weapons here. Barshak looked at the crystallized craters around him and explained to his comrades, the main purpose wasn't to destroy the Chitauri army, as most of them were already dead, but to solve the radiation problem of this planet. Brooke from the European community pretended to be helpless and said, "Our radiation weapons killed most of the life on this planet. Even the bacteria in the surrounding environment came from Earth. But the environmental problem you left behind is very serious. Even if the radiation source is gone, the remaining radiation is still fatal. It will take 15,000 years for the biological population to recover, not because the radiation has disappeared, but because life has adapted to the environment here." Barshak sneered mercilessly. He said proudly, "Only the great General Secretary, Commissar Yuri, thought of a solution, using nuclear bombs." Yang Qi sneered. "This is indeed a good idea, but what about the high radiation? Blow it up. Using nuclear fusion to clean up the nuclear radiation, what a genius idea. Nuclear bombs are a good thing." Barshak didn't care about Yang Qi's mockery. He took a sip of antifreeze. This was real antifreeze, a good thing to protect his biological organs. The Soviets made it into vodka-flavored, and the Black Star Troopers couldn't live without it anymore. He said, "We can use it to repair dams, extinguish fires, attack enemies. It can do anything." Then Barshak looked into the distance with some sadness. Now, these treasures are gone. The General Secretary cleared out all the nuclear weapons on Earth, the old Soviet Union, Russia, and the great new alliance's emergency processing. They all fell here, and the damned Chitauri defense made these treasures useless. They can't even destroy the Chitauri cities. The development of energy technology means that these old weapons can only be used for cleaning purposes. However, he soon got excited. "Thankfully, we have new treasures. Neutron fission bombs, proton bombs. The yield is endless." Yang Qi adjusted his sitting posture. He didn't care about the weapons that Barshak mentioned. The entire alliance recognized that the Republic was the strongest. It might not be as violent as the Soviet Union or as mysterious as the European Union, but it had the most advanced technology, the most complete, the most advanced, and the most comprehensive. Yang Qi's personal equipment might not be as powerful as Barshak's mobile armor and modified prosthetics, but in the hands of the Republic soldiers, it was even more terrifying. Personal armor, or rather, the weaponized version of the personal system, used the external quantum computing system of the human body as the core. It was loaded with the quantum entanglement of the citizens of the Republic in an extensional structure. In an informal explanation, it was a quantum computer that was loaded on the phenomenon of the human soul, supplemented by an intelligent nanorobot system. Two simple structures, the computing core and the application system, supported by the huge amount of scientific data in the quantum computer database, could be said to be omnipotent for the dimensional warriors. After the core was loaded with adamantite nanorobots. They could dismantle Mecca with their bare hands, create nuclear bombs by themselves, and replicate a standard war base in a short period of time. Using the famous game Red Alert as a template, it was a more complete production base. Given enough time, it wasn't impossible to replicate a modern country run by intelligent robots in an Earth-like environment. With advanced technology, the development of productivity would be limitless. This was also one of the reasons why communism in the Republic was able to develop so quickly. Most of the citizens with personal equipment could produce most of society's products by themselves. For the first time, labor and means of production became a concept. The country could go deeper into the production of high-end technological products, but the citizens could produce most of the things they needed. The energy used for production was limitless. Other than some frightening technologies, such as dimensional technology and space technology, humans no longer lacked energy. Matter could be reused. In this kind of situation, people could distribute according to their needs. Even if they didn't distribute, they could still produce by themselves. For the first time, humans lived together because of the need to live together. This was the best era for humans, other than the threat of the apocalypse. Everything was perfect. Any citizen of the Republic was richer than the richest person 5 years ago. Given enough time, he alone could match the productivity of the entire Republic of 5 years ago. The biggest crisis for the Republic was the apocalypse. However, the second biggest crisis was What reason did the Republic have to continue existing? The citizens didn't need a country anymore. With the threat of the apocalypse, this country still had a reason to exist. It was for survival. However, without the apocalypse, what organization and form of society would mankind use to progress? Survival and development were the eternal needs of mankind. The final organizational situation of mankind was inevitably related to these two. The apocalypse told mankind that there was no place in the universe that was safe. There was only one possibility for mankind to perish. After communism was achieved, mankind needed new pursuits and thoughts. The former required mankind to establish organizations to ensure their survival in the multidimensional universe. The latter required mankind to redesign a set of ideological and political systems. Chapter 2:24. Be careful. The Academy of Science has detected a small fluctuation in the spatial stability of planet Carida today. The energy fluctuations on our bodies may cause abnormal spatial warping. Yangqi was wrapped in a silver haze, and a glowing liquid substance flowed out of the light blue electromagnetic ejector, propelling him into outer space. This was the flight system of adamantium nanomachines. These tiny nanomachines might not be much on their own, but once they were replicated in sufficient numbers, it would be a terrifying thing. The fog of light around Yangqi was actually produced by the distortion of light by a spatial force field. The powerful microscopic force field between the nanomachines extracted energy from space, forming a domain around him that did not look big, but was actually very vast. Not only could this spatial bubble play a very powerful protective role, deflecting laser weapons attacks in a vacuum, but it could also control the movement of matter within it. The Republic had entered a life-sustaining program into the nanomachine system, which could even provide the environment needed by the human body in very extreme environments. If it wasn't for the limited production of adamantium, the Republic wouldn't even need to build spaceships. In fact, this spatial bubble had become the research focus of the Republic's next generation of aerospace technology. Compared to the clumsy, massive spaceships, this interstellar weapon had a much better price-performance ratio. Of course, because the spatial bubble couldn't carry enough matter, spaceships were still very important. Matter was an extremely important resource in the universe. During a voyage, it was possible to travel for more than a dozen light years, or even hundreds, or even tens of thousands of light years without finding a single material planet. For a civilization at the level of the Republic, matter was energy, matter was materials, and matter was everything needed for survival. Now, only spaceships as large as cities could provide enough matter. Even larger spaceships were still being built. The Academy of Science had already planned to select moon-sized asteroid from the Carida system's meteorite belt as materials to build motherships. In the Republic's vision, a single-person spatial bubble would be the main combat unit. Other large offensive weapons, such as winged fighters, floating cannons would be used as supplements, and starships the size of planets would be used as motherships. Forming a starship fleet was the future development direction of the Republic. Therefore, this single-person spatial bubble system would only be used within the system. Yangqi's team was responsible for cleaning up the outer space of planet Carida, killing the remaining enemies, and searching for technological products and supplies. Each of them had different methods of navigation. Yangqi had the most comprehensive and advanced spatial bubble system. Only the Republic of China had the ability to provide such a thing. The other allied nations were still far behind in their research in space technology. Bolshak's outer armor was like Iron Man, propelling itself through the magneto-hydrodynamic jets hidden in his hands and feet, allowing him to fly through the universe. They were European community soldiers from France and Italy. Brooke and John had no choice but to follow behind them. After all, the technology of the European community was the most advanced among the Allies. It was as if their technological system had not been affected by the apocalypse, stubbornly and rigidly following the predictions of science fiction on Earth. Spaceships, firearms, melee laser weapons. I think I found something. Barshak called his teammates over to take a look. If the cloaked man who died outside the portal of Zatari could see it, he must have recognized the object lying in the wreckage of the snake-shaped spaceship. It was the beacon that Loki used to contact him. This is space trash captured by the spacecraft wreckage. Look, this is an impact crater. Yang Qi waved his hand, and the key-like metal object flew into his palm. It doesn't look like a fragment, nor is it a weapon. It's worth collecting. That's good. Barshak complained. The people of Zatari are a group of war maniacs. They can't even be called civilized. Technology is only developed in areas related to war. There is basically no other scientific research system. The command thinks that they may be part of a huge civilization, pitiful creatures who have been deprived of their own civilization. Brooke pondered for a moment before coming up with an adjective. Just like the slave legions of ancient Persia, an army composed of aliens. But the scale of such an army has expanded to a terrifying extent in the universe. Their entire race was conquered, their civilization was destroyed, and then they became an army to serve a behemoth civilization. The Allies had guessed most of the situation. The only thing they didn't expect was that it was not a huge civilization, but a person, an individual Terminator. On Earth, Loki walked through the banquet scene with small steps. "Sir, you can't go near here." Two sturdy security guards stopped him from approaching. This was a staircase leading to a closed area. "Can you show me your invitation?" Loki waved the cane in his hand and smiled. "I don't have that. Please come with me." The security guard signaled his companion to take his place and said to Loki. Loki looked at him mockingly, as if he was looking at a tickling bug. He sneered and said, "Stupid earthling." He raised the cane in his hand that had transformed into a cane, weighed it, and smashed it hard on the poor security guard's abdomen. The sound of bones breaking came from under the cane. The strong security guard bent over like a shrimp. His internal organs were broken, and blood mixed with dark red pieces of internal organs spurted out of his mouth. Loki's expression was morbidly excited. He said to the body on the ground, "You need to learn how to talk to your new master." Loki killed another security guard to try to pull out a gun and drove the screaming crowd out. It will take a few minutes for those idiots from SHIELD to arrive. I don't know when they will find out that I'm not in SHIELD cell. Loki was suddenly in a trance, but he quickly recovered. "Oh, already know? Then the next riddle is Hydra. I can't let you disturb Eric." Loki tried to contact Zirida while casually killing humans. The cane in his hand emitted a blue light that hit the human body. Even the body was difficult to preserve. There was no response from Zirida, which made Loki a little puzzled. The night view of the German streets quickly faded away from him, and the surroundings became very dark, just like in space. Yang Qi's team was surprised to find that the metal keys in their hands began to glow, and the surrounding space slowly shrank, making Yang Qi feel that the space bubble was unstable. Loki! A blue figure fell from the sky and blocked Loki's attack with a round shield in his right hand. He swung the shield in his hand and hit Loki's chest heavily. Loki, who was caught off guard, lost control of the cane and fell to the ground. The cane fell from Loki's hand, and the light of the gem on it began to flicker erratically, as if a large amount of energy had been taken away out of thin air. It dimmed, and energy shot out from the gem, and a strong explosion occurred between the two. Loki reached out to block the beam that was coming at him, and Captain America also hid behind a shield. After the dazzling light dissipated, a tall figure first appeared in the sight of the two. He was wrapped in metal armor, and the ferocious armor exuded naked violence. Next to him was a young man with an Asian appearance. He was wrapped in a glimmer of light and looked around in surprise. Chapter 225. The sudden change in space and time made Yang Qi feel a little dizzy. He opened his eyes and found himself standing in a familiar yet strange place. Beside him were high-rise buildings, and beneath his feet was the asphalt road. The exclamations and noises of humans rushed into his mind in a chaotic manner. From the space of another world to the streets of Berlin's bustling city, Yang Qi felt as if he had fallen into a dream. He really could not tell if this was real or an illusion. Ever since the advent of the apocalypse, it was as if everything had been buried in the dust of history. Although it had only been a few years, seeing these scenes in his memory again made Yang-Chi feel as if it was a lifetime ago. Barshak was next to him. The big guy looked good and was looking at everything around him in high spirits. Yang-Chi also noticed the German words on the shop signs next to him. Thanks to the loading of the Republic's personal system, he knew all the languages on Earth, including several alien languages collected in the database. These knowledge and skills were loaded into his quantum phenomenon soul outline. It was deeper than his memory, just like his innate wisdom and instinct. There were no side effects. This is Earth. Yang-Chi was somewhat puzzled, but also somewhat certain. He was familiar with everything here to the bone. The database of his soul periphery could find countless pieces of information that matched this place. There were identical street photos, satellite photos, and virtual models of the old world sand tables. This is Berlin. A man wearing a star-spangled, blue tight-fitting suit came up to him and asked politely, "Who are you people?" Yang-Chi looked like a shadow, shrouded in light and shadow, while Barshak, who was beside him, was even more so, wearing a mobile armor. The malevolent mechanical creation completely embodied the aesthetics of a warring race, the violence, terror, and malevolence of a war machine. Coupled with his strength and height that exceeded the limits of human beings, no one would believe that they were humans. Even the most human-like European community warriors. When they got out of the sci-fi aircraft, they were not convincing at all. Captain America vigilantly guarded against the man who looked like an Asian in front of him. He knew that there were many aliens who looked similar to humans, like Loki, who was being hunted. These Guardians looked exactly like humans. I can't contact the command, but the spatial spectrum here is very familiar. It seemed to be the world on the other side of the three-phase teleportation gate. We might have been sucked in by the portal's space-time passage. I don't know who set up a space-time beacon here, but the portal has anchored us here. Bruce informed everyone through the earpiece. Execute standard exploration procedures and act according to circumstances, Yang-Chi ordered. The team stood between Captain America and Loki, so that neither side dared to act rashly. Captain America was worried that they were Loki's accomplices, and Loki was very afraid of the people behind them who suddenly teleported them. The stalemate didn't last long, and soon Loki felt impatient. He didn't pay attention to these people who suddenly appeared. In other words, he had never considered anyone other than Asgard and a few other existences as trouble. What he had just done was out of the schemer's instinctive vigilance against unexpected events that disrupted his plans. Loki looked gloomily at Yang-Chi and the others. He said to them with a cruel smile, "If you are unintentionally involved in this dispute, then we are not enemies. This is Thanos' conquest of humanity. His will is being thoroughly carried out, and I am the master of this planet beneath your feet. By the order of the great conqueror of the universe, the king of war, Thanos, I will be the king of the world." At this point, Loki deliberately paused and leaned forward slightly. In an inviolable tone, he said to Yang-Chi, "Now tell me, are you friends or enemies, or have nothing to do with it? The planet under your feet, are you talking about the Earth?" Yang-Chi did not react too much to the word Thanos, as Loki imagined. Instead, he asked a self-evident question with an inexplicable doubt. "You said you were the king of the world, because an existence called Thanos gave it to you?" Loki's words reminded Yang-Chi and others of an important piece of information. Loki felt impatient, and he barely maintained his aristocratic demeanor that exaggerated an artificial sense of the stage. "Are you confused about the authority of Thanos? Or, because of a little sympathy, you are indignant about the future fate of the indigenous people on this planet, which makes you try to question its authority? Question my status and appointment? It seems that you don't know the meaning of the name, Thanos. What do we want to know? Do you know that what it says is the law of the universe?" Yang-Chi's face was expressionless. "It's not just the law. It's the universal principle of the whole universe, a kind of fate, an unquestionable fate. The fate of the earth is to be ruled by me, and the fate of mankind is to be conquered by me, because I am God. Forget it. Humans are the same, and you are the same. Always like to question me. I could have let you know what a big mistake you have made." Loki raised his scepter and said, "But I'm tired of it." The scepter returned to its original shape, and the sharp blade at the top was made of Asgard metal, which could easily cut through alloy armor and block energy radiation attacks. Loki's speed was very fast. The Frost Giant's physical fitness was stronger than Captain America's, and the Asgardians' combat skills were far superior to those of the Earth. But the scepter was blocked a full meter away from Yang-Chi. An invisible force field wrapped around Loki's scepter and firmly locked it in place. The space was like a sticky gel, and the harder Loki stabbed, the greater the resistance. He managed to move 2 meters forward, but he couldn't go any further. Captain America's reaction was also very fast. Without hesitation, he took off the shield on his right arm and threw it at the back of Loki's head, but Loki caught it with one hand. The strength of the Frost Giant was fully displayed. A hoarse voice like thunder rang out. "Do you think this thin layer of barrier can stop me? I'll let you know what a big mistake you have made." Loki's voice made the air tremble, and it sounded like it went straight into the souls of several people. "Go to hell." Before Loki's roar fell, he was hit in the back of the head by a lump of alloy the size of a human head. Even with his extraordinary physique, he felt his vision go black, and then a series of consecutive blows, 2 real iron fists accurately hitting every place defined as a human's vital point. Barshak used the wrestling technique he learned in the army to constantly hit Loki's vital points, while at the same time destroying his body's balance, so that his body was always in a state of adjustment. Captain America could always make up for the previous blow at the most appropriate time, so that Loki had no chance to react. Fortunately, Asgardians still had magic, where Loki would be the first alien in the divine realm to die from human martial arts. Using the power of the soul gem, Loki made a mistake in the two's consciousness. His hands were inevitably a little off, and there were some problems with their coordination. That was how they got out of this state. "Do you know anything about Apocalypse?" Loki heard the voice behind him, and a sense of danger that made his tailbone tremble firmly enveloped him. Through the ESP, Loki saw Yang-Chi's palm aimed at the back of his head. The energy gathered, and the feeling of tearing space let him know that it was not something fun. "Yes," Loki answered honestly. He raised his hands, indicating that he did not want to resist. "Please don't be agitated. I surrender. You can arrest me. Look at what you've done." Captain America gritted his teeth. Loki looked around at the wounded and dead bodies around him and said dryly, "I'm sorry about this, but you can't kill me. But you can't kill me. I'm an Asgardian, a diplomat. You have to judge me for my crimes together with my father Odin." "I don't care who you are," Yang-Chi said behind him. "I just want to ask, what is your relationship with Apocalypse? I've only heard of him. Apocalypse and his 4 horsemen will bring unprecedented disaster to the universe. He has hurt many people and destroyed many civilizations, but that has nothing to do with me. I am also his enemy, and Asgardians will fight him to the death. If you have a grudge against him, then we should be friends." Loki wanted to turn around, but the infinite rising warning in his heart reminded him that it was better not to do so. "Liar, you betrayed Asgard." Captain America exposed Loki's lie. "Since you have nothing to do with Apocalypse." Yang-Chi controlled the nanomachines to cover Loki's head. The creepy touch made Loki very uncomfortable. He always felt that there was a sun behind him that would explode at any time, and the surrounding space began to become unstable. The power that could tear him apart was like a knife on his back. Chapter 226. Lady Storm's words stepped into the void outside of Neptune. The energy storm behind her was like a prairie fire pouring down in torrents. Although there was not enough time to brew, the radiation concentration and intensity of the cosmic storm had not reached its limit. It was not comparable to the radiation storm in the natural state of the universe, but it was enough to trigger a solar storm that swept across the solar system. Violent energy surged and surrounded Lady Stormward, causing her small figure to expand thousands of times. Her body made of pure energy was like a god or a spirit. Apocalypse, you may not be invincible. The last thing you should give us is time. As Lady Storm's word roared in anger, the energy outline outside her body completely faded, merging into the crazy solar storm. On the other side of the SHIELD headquarters, Nick, Hill, and the others had long been frightened by the series of detection data. Once a solar storm of this scale was formed, it would be enough to melt the surface of all the planets in the solar system. Anything above minus 3,000 meters above sea level would melt into magma. They could not have predicted this kind of disaster at all. The response measures and disaster emergency procedures were just a joke on paper by the NASA. Lady Stormsword's complete outbreak did not pose any threat to Chennong, but it almost scared the people on Earth to death. Why can't the space-time corridor be activated? Do you know that this will make most of SHIELD's response measures completely ineffective? Without space-time backtracking, we will lose this most important link. Our plan to save Earth will fail by at least 3/4. Didn't you tell me it was foolproof? Nick roared at his subordinates agitatedly. His black face was flushed red as he questioned them angrily. There's a higher-level interference source. 10 minutes ago, the space-time interference curve fluctuated greatly. The interference value suddenly exploded, and the entire timeline cannot be stabilized to the extent that we can travel through time. I'm not asking you what the reason is. I'm asking you if you have a solution. Maybe Stark has a solution. Bang! Nick pressed his subordinate heavily against the wall and glared at him with his remaining eye. Do you have any more bad news for me? Yes, sir. The solar storm may just be a prelude. Its purpose is to trigger something even more terrifying. Nick looked at him silently and suddenly asked him calmly, "What is the prelude?" It's the charging of the electromagnetic cannon before firing, and the ignition of a nuclear bomb before it explodes. The detonation of an atomic bomb before a hydrogen bomb explodes. Feeling the pressure on his neck getting stronger and stronger, and hearing his neck bone wailing, the researcher didn't dare to say anything more. He quickly spat out the truth. The solar wind is only increasing the temperature of the sun and then heating up the core of the sun. Once the core temperature reaches 100 to 200 million degrees, the nuclear fusion of helium will begin. Yes, the temperature will increase rapidly. This will further increase the helium fusion rate and reaction zone, but it won't increase the pressure. Therefore, the sun's core would not expand steadily. The thermal runaway reaction causes the star to release 1,000,000 times more energy than a normal star in a matter of seconds. Our sun will become a white dwarf, and Earth will be vaporized by this process into free matter. Helium flash. Nick's muttering was heard by the researcher, who nodded as if he had just been pardoned. It's helium flash. Are you kidding me? Agent Hill closed the curtains and walked into Nick's office. SHIELD. Can't do anything about this. Our imagination isn't crazy enough to come up with a plan to deal with a solar explosion. These words made both of them silent, as if they had a flash of inspiration. Nick was the first to react. He hesitated and said, "There isn't? Why do I think there is such a plan?" Hill looked at him thoughtfully. Suddenly, both of them shouted, "Howard Stark!" Chennong didn't seem to care about the humans on Earth who were being shot. Neither the solar storm nor the helium flash could threaten him. Lady Stormsword also knew this, so this move was more of a hostage and exchange. The safety of Earth in exchange for the survival of the mutants and their safe departure. However, this did not stop Chennong from completely erasing Dakin's consciousness. He locked Dakin's main personality in a split body, allowing the many personalities in his body to reside in the split body and obtain freedom. This was like another form of resurrection, because Dakin himself didn't know how many personalities he had. The ones who died in front of him, the ones he wanted to save and remember, the characters he had seen in movies and animation, how many characters there were in his memory and imagination. How many personalities there were. Of course, most of this was pale and one-sided. Walter? Quicksilver? Professor? Magneto? The mutants all saw their split bodies. They watched in horror as countless splits of different colors were born from Dakin's main body. Some had just died, and some were still alive, until Dakin became a biochemical material with a blank personality. I've studied this kind of simulation and replication ability before. Darwin's genetic simulation, Demonis cell transformation, and the Sentinel's self-evolution. Congratulations, this is enough for me to develop Dakin's ability to a whole new level. Shenang's words made the young mutant warriors nervous. They all looked at this mutant, the unprecedented demon king in human history, with their hearts extremely nervous and uneasy. Shenang did not disappoint them. He smiled and said, "Don't think that these personalities are fake. Dakin's personality simulation ability is the closest ability I've seen to his soul. Sometimes you can't even tell whether these personalities are his memories, or he has swallowed other people's souls into his own body. Of course, virtual is virtual, but I've made up for this point. I used the Demonis, Darwin, and the Sentinel robot's cell circumference as material and adjusted Dakin's body so that he can perfectly clone your body. So what?" Vulcan interrupted him and said, "We only have one soul. This is something you can't fake. Young man, don't be so decisive." Shenang smiled and added, "Is the soul really unique? Perhaps the experience in this dimension has given you this illusion. Think about it. The future, the past, the present. There are countless of you in countless time and space. Is their soul unique? These are the souls I pulled from the depths of time. Some of them are from the past, some are your future, and some are just another possibility of your existence, the present. After killing you, they will be the only self, and they can successfully replace you and gain a new life. This time, your enemy is yourself, and something from my imagination." As Chun Ang's voice fell, the doppelganger Magneto looked at himself not far away and sneered. There can only be one Magneto in this world. He looked back at his subordinates and enemies that kept appearing, pointed to his heart, and said, "You should have felt the voice in your heart, the disgust from our souls. There is only one self in a world. If you don't want to become a false existence, then come with me and kill your existence in this world. Now, who will follow me? To be continued. P.S. Happy New Year's Eve. I wish everyone good luck." Chapter 227. Loki is the Prince of Asgard, and we must be careful with him. Captain America explained to Yang-Chi helplessly that he was escorting Loki to the headquarters of S.H.I.L.D., and at the same time, he had to contact these mysterious fighters to determine their intentions. Asgard? Is it a country from another planet? Yang-Chi carefully collected information about the world and was ready to make preliminary exchanges with the Earth government on behalf of the Republic of Republic. Captain America nodded and said, "Yes, they're from outer space. But what makes me more curious is your origin. If I'm not mistaken, your technology products have strong traces of human technology. It's hard to imagine that there are two such similar technological development paths, It's like human technology has developed to a crossroads and then made a new breakthrough in one of the directions." Yang-Chi said what Rogers wanted to say. He looked at Captain America and said, "It's hard to imagine that there is such a similar technology tree in this world, right? Unless there is a race whose physiological structure, planetary environment, historical traceability, and logical thinking are so similar to humans, and in extreme accidental circumstances, their historical development happens to be similar to that of humans. Of course, it's not impossible, but we have a better explanation." Captain America thought for a long time and finally said the word, "parallel space." Yang-Chi did not admit or deny it. Although the answer is very close, it is still some distance from the truth. Although he does not agree with the practice of humans in this world, Yang-Chi still chooses to respect the law enforcement power of the sovereign country of the Earth. After all, not every country can be as decisive as the Republic of Republic or thunderous to solve the problem of contact with aliens. Judging from Loki's ability, Asgard is obviously a country with technology and strength that far surpasses that of the Earth. The U.S. government will choose this way. This is also reasonable. They are not like the Tri-Nation Alliance Army, which has leapfrogging black technology and military strength that can beat and even destroy the Chitauri Army. Several people flew from Berlin to New York in a Quinjet. SHIELD has obviously adapted to the endless stream of aliens and superpowers during this time. Reformers, scientists who invented black technology, God, magicians. In a short span of a few months, several battles that could destroy Earth had taken place, and the number of powerhouses that could destroy the world was endless. Even if their true form was the calamity, the bane of mankind, and the Creator were excluded, a certain God, as well as the group of angels under him, the number of powerhouses who had the thoughts and the ability to move the world were far more than 10. The Hulk sealed on the moon, the gods of Asgard, the destroyer tyrant that ruled an entire universe empire, a secluded inhuman clan. There was also the mysterious group that had recently appeared on Neptune. These existences that seriously threatened the safety of Earth forced SHIELD to search for the evolutionary equation on the monument of life and time, crack the manufacturing method of the Sentinel on the monument of death, and create the intelligent life Ultron. During this period, because of his research on the universe's Tesseract Cube, he had attracted the attention of Thanos and other evil forces. But anyway, SHIELD was still on the move. Sometimes he felt helpless and could only watch his own fate from the sidelines, drifting freely without anyone to rely on, maintaining the survival of the entire human race on a fragile balance and possibility, or on the idea of a dangerous existence. The surface temperature of the Sun has risen by 4 million degrees. Is the star core temperature measurement spectrometer of Stark Industries in place? This temperature is already very dangerous. SHIELD was in a panic, and everyone was running around, passing data and information. They were observing the star near Earth and the situation in the blackbody region of Neptune. All the data showed that this young star was heading towards death, whether it collapsed into a white dwarf or expanded into a red giant. The Earth less than 9 light minutes away from it would melt, evaporate, and disappear completely. And all this was because a certain existence on Neptune wanted to trigger a helium flash and manipulate a cosmic storm to heat the Sun. The core temperature is 60 million degrees, and it is still rising at a power of hundreds of degrees per second. It is less than 5 days away from the danger line of 100 million to 120 million. Not good. The temperature is increasing rapidly. We don't have much time. What's the situation on Earth? Agent Hill asked. One of the researchers stood up and quickly replied, "The Earth's temperature is normal. The spectrum measured on the surface hasn't fluctuated much compared to 3 days ago. However, outside the atmosphere, the spectral temperature has exceeded 600 degrees, which is equivalent to a large-scale solar storm. All the light radiation carrying energy will inexplicably disappear after entering the atmosphere. It's like the Earth is protected by a cover." It was hard to say whether the person who triggered the cosmic storm on Neptune was more powerful or the person who silently controlled the entire Earth was more terrifying. Agent Hill then noticed that the psychological state of his scientific elites was abnormal. Their eyes were dull, and they were in a trance. Obviously, they were affected by the astronomical data of Neptune and the Sun. It was also the first time that Agent Hill came into contact with this terrifying world. Hidden under the world of ordinary people, the cruelest secrets in the world of SHIELD, and the facts and truth that were mostly different from human cognition. How's Neptune? Nick Fury hurried out of the office. The first thing he was concerned about was the situation on Neptune. Reduce the detection level of the Sun's temperature and assign people to Neptune. That's the cause of all this. It looks like the situation is dire. Agent Hill pointed at the data on the screen and said, "There are a few large fluctuations in a few physical quantities. There was even an astronomical magnetic storm just now. Even the most conservative estimate is that Neptune's magnetic field must have been destroyed. Right now, the planet's gravity distribution is extremely uneven. How many large fluctuations in physical quantities are there? The magnetic storm is one, and so is the light radiation. There is also the cosmic storm that swept through the entire solar system. There are too many abnormal energy fluctuations, such as temperature, mass, and gravitational force. There is more than one person there. Our creator's opponent is not simple either. Nick was hesitating if he should risk losing a few satellites to adjust the detection orbit when someone interrupted him. "Director, Captain America wants to see you. Let him come in." "Wait, is there someone else?" Nick suddenly realized. Chapter 228. When Yang-Chi saw the familiar figure again from the screen around him, his heart almost stopped. Let me tell you, although he was wearing a mask, the suffocating sense of oppression, the chilling dominance, the arbitrary style of doing things, and the familiar technological traces of the Skynet base all reminded him of that terrible name. The name that had been repeating in his ears since he came to this world. "You know Dr. Doom?" Captain America was keenly aware of Yang-Chi's stiffness and shock, and also thought of the possible secrets between them. Yang-Chi locked onto the Skynet base in Manhattan through the satellite in outer space, and flipped through the photos and information of Chun-Ong one by one, frowning. The more he flipped through the information, the more he was sure of his terrible guess. "He's called Dr. Doom here." Captain America was dumbfounded. He has other names. All right, he borrowed the name of a super criminal, so he's not called Doom. Then I remember you mentioning his name. "He's the Apocalypse," Yang-Chi replied in a heavy tone. "That's impossible. The Apocalypse is another very terrible evil existence." Nick, who hurried over, interrupted Yang-Chi's words. "He's definitely not the Apocalypse. The real Apocalypse is still under the surveillance of the 5 universal gods." Thor, who was next to Nick, also added, "We've been at war with the Apocalypse for more than 1,000,000 years. The Apocalypse is the real god, and that person has no divinity. We don't have as long a history of war as you, but we were expelled from our homeland just a few months ago," Barshak interjected. "We'll remember who the Apocalypse is for the rest of our lives." Just then, there was a slight change in the surveillance video in outer space. "This is a gravitational wave." Nick stared at the screen, his tone unconsciously rising. "The Earth's orbit was affected just now. According to calculations, there's a problem with Neptune's gravitational force." "What does the monitoring data of the gravitational wave represent?" The researcher next to him hurriedly explained, "This is what the simulation of such data should look like." He tapped lightly on the keyboard. On the screen, the orange elliptical sphere representing Neptune was split in half from the center of the sphere. The entire planet was divided into 2 debris of different sizes. The smaller star remnant was captured by the sun's gravity and flew toward the inner part of the solar system at an extremely fast speed. The diameter of Neptune is nearly 50,000 kilometers. The fighting there has become so intense. Change to Stark Industries' deep space exploration satellite. "I want to see what's going on," Nick ordered. Soon, an optical image of Neptune appeared on the screen. However, due to the speed of light delay, the entire optical image should have taken place 250 minutes ago in absolute time. A huge gap had appeared on Neptune, and it had lost almost a third of its original mass. This frozen planet had now turned into a fiery hell, and superhot liquid erupted from the core, covering the entire planet. The world that the Asgardians called Jordaheim. It had already disappeared from its original orbit and was now located 500,000 kilometers away from its original position. The gap on the side of the planet looked like an incomplete fist print no matter how one looked at it. The original material at the gap turned into a comet with a long tail. Unfortunately, it was flying towards the Earth. Nick had a feeling that there were more lice than lice. Anyway, there were still 4 years before the Earth, and the sun was going to explode in a few hours. There was less than a year before the end of the apocalypse, and there were less than 9 hours before Loki led the aliens to attack. So he could wait for the helium flash of the sun to destroy the alien army and the entire human race. Then let the apocalypse and Neptune's comet return without accomplishing anything. Nick shrugged at Captain America and said helplessly that Asgardians should be allowed to see how dangerous the Earth he wants to conquer is. If he were to stay in my position for a minute, he would feel that he is better suited to suckling a home. Captain America sighed and said, "I thought I could enjoy peace this time, but now it seems that World War II was a little safer. Can this image be clearer?" He pointed to a few black spots on the larger wreckage. On the wreckage of Neptune, at the location of the larger black spots, several star fragments became asteroids around Neptune, and under the control of Magneto, they searched the entire planet. "We have lost track of him. His speed is too fast, and the surrounding energy reflection is too strong. It has blocked the background electromagnetic radiation of the universe. It makes it impossible for me to lock onto him." Magneto floated outside Neptune's orbit, scanning the surrounding electromagnetic waves. He hoped to find some clues about Chunong. Although the professor has helped us control a large group, the apocalypse has caused serious mental damage to him. Such a crude suppression of his other personalities will have an extreme negative impact on his injury. The seeds planted by apocalypse are germinating, and those personalities will devour each other, kill each other, and learn from each other, which will only produce more terrible things. This may be what Apocalypse wants. We're cultivating a group of demons. Storm's word questioned. Increase the energy of the solar storm. We will force him out. Magneto looked at Earth, his eyes full of killing intent. Impossible. The professor will not agree. Then ignore him. Don't forget, the people on Earth are just a group of monkeys. This is an insult to humanity from Apocalypse. Magneto looked back at her angrily and asked, "If you think they are humans like Charles, you will not come here with me." Restoring human identity and allowing mutants and humans to truly merge as one. This is the common ideal of the Dark Templars. Storm's word was silent. She did not agree with the professor's choice to accept the identity of Starling. So she chose Magneto, who is committed to returning to humanity. But in her heart, the professor will always have more authority than Magneto. "I can't do it. Once I intensify the reaction process of the helium flash, the professor will force his way into my brain and control me. You know, the only thing in this world that can restrict the professor's psychic abilities, other than Apocalypse, is his own moral code." "You have changed, Aurora." The voice that suddenly appeared in her mind shocked Storm's word, but when she reacted, she only felt sad. Storm's word said absent-mindedly, "Professor." She looked around at the deep darkness and the twinkling stars around her. The identity of humans does not lie in genes and bloodlines, nor in the past and the present, but in love, emotion, and the future. Apocalypse did not create humans, because the real creators of humans are always themselves. He can reproduce history, tamper with people's minds, and create human bodies, but the real thing that gives human souls and life is something that cannot be changed. Love? Where there is love, there is life. Look at the people who really exist on Earth. Their joys and sorrows, their joys and sorrows, their love and life. This kind of touching and reality will not change because of the hypocrisy of their ancestors. They're also human beings, and we have become star spirits. But they stole our history, leaving our souls without anything to rely on. Storm's word could not help but sob. "Sigh, Aurora, help me control the group." The professor did not dwell on this point, but pleaded with her. The apocalypse has injected too many memories and emotions into him. The filthy, evil, terrifying, cruel, violent, and powerful things from human fantasy works and history have been injected into the brains of the large group by the apocalypse in the form of perfect memories and emotions. Those distorted personalities have killed and devoured each other in his mind to give birth to the concentrated existence of all their evil. The Texas Killer, Jack the Ripper, Miyazaki Tsutomu, these murderers with serious mental illness, and the demons from human fantasy. Jason, Freddy, Sadako, Kayako, Churinmei, Esther. Chapter 229. Hulk didn't know how long he had been in this darkness, and even his memory and personality were blurred. In the beginning, he could still maintain the unextinguished anger in his heart, giving himself infinite strength. But in this empty darkness, there was no reliance on strength, and time was meaningless. In the beginning, he became angrier day by day, The anger of being imprisoned made him dozens of times stronger, but no matter how strong his will was, he couldn't resist the erosion of time. This long darkness had polished the anger in his heart to the point where it was about to be extinguished. Chenong Seal was an independent space without matter, energy, or even time. It only relied on the 6 golden characters on the asteroid to maintain the connection with the outside space. Even so, Hulk's experience was a very long process, so long that even the barrier between his 2 personalities had been worn down. I thought everything here was eternal and unchanging. Hulk looked at a beam of soft light in the dark space in surprise. His eyes were calm and quiet at this time, as if he had recovered the kindness and rationality of Bruce. The soft light was not dazzling, but it was quite conspicuous in this unchanging darkness. Hulk could see a vague shadow wrapped in this light. It was not strong, but it was very warm. The shadow became clear. It was a gentle and wise old man, sitting in a wheelchair and looking at him with a smile. It was worth noting that there was no trace of hair on the old man's head. The bald old man had the scholar's aura that Bruce was familiar with. He was calm and wise, and his eyes seemed to see through the world. They were penetrating, clear, pure, peaceful, quiet, and joyful. His calmness and sincerity could be seen in his eyes. This was the window of the soul, and he opened his clear heart to Hulk to see. Such a person. Even Hulk found it difficult to have malice and anger towards him. His calmness even infected the anger under Hulk's calm appearance. Of course, this place is not eternal, child. Apocalypse just distorted the space here and stretched time to a very long limit. He hoped to use the world to erase the anger in your heart. No emotions. Without anger, Hulk will disappear, and in such an empty place, Bruce can't live. But he failed. Hulk smiled and said, I want to thank him because I found that I can control my anger now. I won't lose my mind again. My power is truly in my own hands. Bruce, Hulk, has become one person. The bald old man laughed kindly. Hulk felt inexplicably guilty under his all-seeing gaze. The old man said sincerely, Don't lie to me, child. I'm not a subordinate of Apocalypse, and I'm not here to test you. I mean you no harm. On the contrary, I'm here to help you. I'll do everything I can to help you. Hulk had no reason to believe him, but he still looked into the old man's eyes and said, You don't believe that I'm Hulk? No, I believe you are Hulk. The old man answered with absolute certainty, but his tone immediately changed. He pursed his lips and said, I just don't believe that you've calmed down. On the contrary, you are in a state of extreme anger. Your calmness and rationality are all preserved for the sake of survival in this space. You have buried a kindling in your heart, my child, and if you set it free, you will die. If it's released, you'll turn the entire universe into a sea of fire and ruins. Hulk's calmness and calmness disappeared bit by bit with the old man's words. The smile on his face became more and more distorted and cold. These ordinary words seemed to have magical power. They cut into the depths of his heart and stabbed everything that he had hidden deeply. The Hulk's body swelled up again. From a height of 3 meters in front of the old man, he expanded several times. The old man was like an ant in front of him. His face became more and more ferocious, and his anger rose higher and higher, until the Hulk filled this boundless and vast space. He waved his hand and tore the space apart, violently destroying everything in front of him. There was no matter, no energy. He could shatter the void with a punch, and he could tear the space that imprisoned him apart with open arms. The roar that caused the entire void to tremble stirred up a huge wave of space matter. The Hulk roared, I've been imprisoned for hundreds of millions of years, exiled to this barren space by Dr. Destruction. How dare you provoke me? You're courting death. It's the apocalypse that imprisons your body, but it's you who imprisons your heart. The old man's shadow was like a tenacious lamp in the space storm. It never dissipated. Instead, it lit up the Hulk's lonely heart, and the warm light shone on him. However, the Hulk's anger could not be quelled until the 6 Chinese characters on the asteroid that sealed him lit up slightly. No, Dr. Destruction, I curse you. Damn it all. The Hulk cried bitterly and grabbed his head. A circle of light that seemed to be made of gold was slowly hovering above him. The old man gently stroked the circle of light on Hulk's head. The golden light dimmed slightly and then disappeared. This is the thought controller. It locks your meme. As long as your anger exceeds a limit, it will forcibly change your personality. For the apocalypse, there is nothing that cannot be analyzed about the human soul and personality. He wantonly plays with the soul, changes consciousness, and sets up this kind of brainwashing program. He has always used you as a test subject to study the deep connection between memes and genes. I thought I had it under control, but I didn't expect it to be hidden in my heart and never leave. Hulk slowly raised his head, looking confused. Bruce? The old man said in surprise. If I leave here, the anger of being imprisoned will make Hulk extremely powerful. It will destroy everything. Bruce looked at the old man and pleaded, "Please help me destroy it. Hulk is a part of you. Then destroy me too," Bruce said firmly. The old man shook his head. "No, Bruce. I have a student like you. She has an incomparably dark shadow, an uncontrollable personality. I once tried to suppress it, but I failed in the end. But I never regretted protecting her. Her name is Jean Grey, and she is my student. Her other personality is the Black Phoenix, an existence destined to destroy everything. I am Professor X. I can help you. Are you willing to be my student?" "I am willing, Professor." Professor X delved into Bruce's mind layer by layer. In the deepest part, he smiled at his new student. Bruce curled up in this dark spiritual world. Next to him was twisted anger and the desire to destroy. Hulk's consciousness was like the sea surrounding him, dark and violent. He could only curl up and seek some pitiful space. Until he saw the professor's light, saw the light tear through the darkness, split the sea, and rescued him. The professor's shadow took a golden hoop from Bruce's head, and the circle of light on Hulk's body suddenly disappeared. "Professor," Bruce burst into tears. "Bruce, you have to learn to control your mind." The professor put his hand on his heart and said to him, "You are Hulk. Hulk is you." "Ah!" Bruce roared at the sky. Hulk's body, sealed in space, also raised his head, and his roar tore through the space again. The apocalypse set up a two-way space wall outside this space, and he broke this space down into a part of the structure of the outside universe. Four-dimensional time is composed of three-dimensional space, but in the four-dimensional universe, it is impossible to find three-dimensional space without time. This is the space wall. He isolated the connection between this three-dimensional space and the higher dimension, and also made it impossible for the higher dimension to enter here. But in order to torture you with time, the apocalypse set up a circular paradox to connect with the outside world in time and space. This left a loophole. As long as I destroy this space-time paradox, I can destroy the space wall and restore the connection between the two spaces. Bruce asked curiously, "Then how do you destroy the space-time paradox? Do you see those 6 characters?" Bruce looked at the asteroid in outer space, puzzled. "Those are Chinese characters. Just say, 'Mani Mani Padme Hum,' and it will be done." As soon as the professor's voice fell, a thin piece of gold foil fell from the top of the 5 mountains on the asteroid parallel to the moon. Bruce immediately felt that he had restored his connection with the outside world, and he could even see Earth. "That's it." Bruce's tone was a little strange. The professor nodded, confirming Bruce's doubts. "This is a means left behind by the apocalypse. As long as anyone says these 6 characters on this planet, the seal will be unlocked." Not only did Bruce not show any excitement, but he said fiercely, "He's crazy." Although he was a little dazed by this, Bruce still forced himself to calm down and said to Professor X, "Professor, go a little further away. The damage I'll cause when I come out will be a little big. My body is still tens of thousands of light years away, protecting the civilization from afar with the main body of the apocalypse. Here, it's just the radiation of my thoughts. You just have to be careful not to hurt Earth." "Okay, Professor, I'm coming out." The next moment, S, H, I, L, D, and other country bumpkins on Earth once again saw an astronomical miracle happening at close range. A big green hand stretched out from the asteroid that was 1/3 the size of the moon. Then, like a chicken hatching from an egg, a giant split the planet and jumped out of the core. A loud noise came from outside the atmosphere. Although there was no air, the vibration caused by other media still made the whole world resound with a loud thunder. Hulk! The giant beat his chest and stamped his feet as he roared. The huge asteroid wreckage was lifted up by him with one hand and thrown towards the sun. A solar storm of tens of thousands of degrees enveloped him, but Bruce did not seem to notice. Chapter 230. Ever since Skynet took over Manhattan, Earth had been in constant trouble. Disasters of all sizes were happening one after another. Even the pedestrians on the streets seemed to be in a hurry, their expressions gloomy. Although they did not express in words, an inexplicable restlessness was always growing in the dark corners. Everyone had a restlessness in their hearts that had nowhere to vent. The Hulk once again tore the planet apart with his bare hands in front of the world. After media reports, everyone knew that he was a monster who could not control his anger. He was the culprit who caused havoc in New York City. The victims who lost their loved ones in that accident would never forget the pain that Hulk brought to them. Hello, this is the White House's line. I'm sorry, Dr. Bruce did not commit a crime, and he is not wanted. We can't arrest him and send him to a mental hospital. Even according to the law, the doctor was incapacitated when he killed your son, so the court can't convict him. We understand how you feel, but Dr. Bruce is a hero who protects the people. Nick put down the phone in his hand and shrugged at Gil. I'm going to give the operator psychological counseling. Oh my God, her words are so unpleasant. Has Bruce contacted us yet? Gil asked worriedly. The situation is not good. We have tried our best to control the media, but we can't stop the gossip about Killer Hulk and Ogre Bruce. Hulk tore the planet apart and escaped under everyone's eyes. We can't control the worried people at all. They don't know that the sun is about to explode. If this continues, I'm worried that the people will make irrational choices, Gil said worriedly. There's still time. The protests and legislation can explode in a short period of time. The most important thing now is the survival of mankind. For this bottom line, we can pay any price. The Congress will support any action we take, as long as we can solve the crisis that is close at hand. Send a team led by Black Widow to look for Bruce. Nick stood up and looked at the helicarrier outside the office window. He said thoughtfully, I have a feeling that he will bring us the good news that we have been waiting for. Chief, there's a riot in Stark Square against a superhero, said Hill after receiving a message. He turned around and said to Nick, Shenong was in Stark Square, still holding Thor's hammer in his left hand. Although he did not wear Dr. Destruction's mask, his attire was still conspicuous enough. Skynet controls the city's surveillance facilities and networks, making it impossible for S.H.I.L.D. to find him as quickly as possible. The sudden appearance of Chun-Ong caused uneasiness in the crowd, and there was a little commotion in the flowing crowd under the Stark building. The heroes who gathered here to protest against Stark Industries formed a circle around Chun-Ong. They were hostile to Chun-Ong's silence, and fear surrounded him. Then, an old man who looked like the leader of the gathering stepped forward. He glared at Chun-Ong aggressively and walked toward Chun-Ong without any trace of politeness. You monsters, demons abandoned by God, get out of our country. The United States does not need the protection of devils like you. As he spoke, he tried to push Chun-Ong's chest. However, an invisible force field stopped him. The man gave it another push in surprise. He felt the supple but strong repulsive force in front of him. It was like rubber sliding away from his strength. Monster, the man yelled. He carefully took 2 steps back. He pointed at Chun-Ong with hatred and fear and shouted, This is the power of the devil. These bastards and deformities. They gave up the power of God's grace. Get out, monster! The crowd on the periphery was boiling. They picked up the things in their hands and threw them at Chun-Ong. You monsters, self-righteous heroes and vigilantes, we don't need your protection. The law and the police will protect us from living with monsters. You should be locked in prison, deformed bastards, baby-eating devils. Seeing that Chenong had no intention of resisting, the marchers became more and more courageous. They boldly threw weapons and filth at him, and the insults from their mouths became more and more filthy. Molotov cocktails started to be thrown at Chenong, and the gasoline started to burn around Chenong. The crowd with steel pipes and weapons threw gasoline cans and solid alcohol at Chenong from afar. Nothing could get within 6 feet of Chenong, like there was an invisible barrier between Chenong and them. The flames burned outside the barrier, forming a circle like a blooming lianhua. In the middle of the burning lianhua, Chenong calmly observed the fanatical crowd, and the people outside looked at him like they were looking at a monster. The people outside looked at him like they were looking at a monster, and Chenong looked at the people outside like they were ants. Chenong's calmness was interpreted by the attackers as guilt, just like what these people had done before. Superheroes would not attack normal people because normal people were the representatives of justice. Once a superhero attacked them, it would be the greatest sin, and they would change from being on the side of justice to being a criminal. The law would protect them. They denied the justice of a superhero, but they used the integrity of a hero to demand a superhero. Once someone resisted, they could take the moral high ground and ruin the person's reputation. Because they represented normal people, the largest group of humans, and because the law did not punish the masses, it would only protect the weak, and because the superheroes who valued their reputation as much as their lives did not dare to do anything to them. But Chenong was not a superhero. He was the world's biggest villain. He was infamous in several planes, an existence that made children cry. I don't think I did anything to you, did I? Chenong waved his hand to disperse the flames and said to the people surrounding him, I'm actually not a superhero. Can you not surround me? I have something to do. The man in the lead stood up again, holding a steel pipe wrapped in tape in his hand, which was different from a rubber baton. Not only would the tape not act as a buffer, but it would also slow down the impact, which could really break a person's skull. Because you are a monster, God created humans. He was merciful and did not give us the power to hurt others. He pointed at the invisible force field around Chenong and said loudly to the people around him, only demons and monsters have this kind of power. You try to hide behind a harmless appearance, but God taught us not to lock hungry beasts in the same house with us. We have made this mistake many times, but monsters will always hurt our loved ones. Put those monsters in cages. Only in mental hospitals and prisons will you not hurt us. Don't push everything to God. I didn't think of such nonsense when I created you. Chenong casually waved his hand, and the man was pulled to his side by an irresistible force. Chenong smiled and asked him, I have a question for you. Chenong's sudden action shocked the people around him, and they began to scatter in panic. The man in Chenong's grasp struggled even more violently, and he threatened, How dare you attack me? The police and the government will not let you go. If you kill me, the honor and justice of a superhero will be trampled by you, and the Avengers will immediately arrest you and throw you into prison. They can't control me. Chenong shook his head. My question is, if all the superheroes are expelled by you, who will stop me? The eyes of the man caught by Chenong suddenly widened, and his face suddenly turned pale. His whole body trembled, and he was so afraid that he could not speak, because Chenong's face was covered with a metal mask that he was very familiar with. Water drops dripped from his crotch, and the man who was caught in a nightmare could not even control his bladder, and his body was completely paralyzed in the air. The persistence of the hero and the doubts of the people, an interesting plot, including the hero's self-interrogation and the struggle of human nature, the conflict between personal heroism and the system, is really the most precious training for the hero, but unfortunately, I am the villain. Chenong threw the smelly body to the ground, and Mjolnir fell on Stark Square, and all of New York shook violently. A huge crack ran through the entire Stark Square from where Mjolnir fell, tearing the surrounding streets and destroying the foundations of the surrounding buildings. The whole city once again fell into panic and turmoil. Under the satellite surveillance of S.H.I.E.L.D., Chenong walked into the Stark building behind him. To be continued. Chapter 231. This is Stark Industries. Sir, you can't go in. The hot receptionist hurriedly stood up and tried to stop Chenong, who was about to enter from the side. Her waist swayed, her curves were perfect, and Tawny's aesthetic sense was once again revealed. It's not hard to imagine what kind of luck that playboy will enjoy when he goes to work. I can do it. Chenong said hello to her and stepped into the elevator. Skynet has controlled the security system here, and his authority is the same as Stark's. The green light representing passage was quickly relit. This made the receptionist a little hesitant. Chun-Ang's authority was higher than hers, but she had never seen this person. The network defense of Stark Industries is one of the best on the Earth. Artificial intelligence Jarvis controls part of the administrative power in the group and has the highest security authority. In theory, she doesn't have a right to manage so much. After thinking for a while, seeing the elevator carrying Chun-Ang disappear from sight, the beautiful receptionist pressed the security button next to her and said to the intercom on the stage, "Security department, check the security authority of the person who just went in." What? No one in surveillance? I'm sure someone went in. Go inform Ms. Pep. The Stark Security Department hurriedly contacted the Chief Control Artificial Intelligence Jarvis, but the defense of the building has been taken over by Skynet. Of course, they can't receive a reply. At this time, even the slowest person understands that the headquarters of Stark Industries has been invaded. Skynet's nanorobots look like sticky silver liquid. They flow into the Stark building along the city's water system. The employees of Stark Industries can see that wherever there is a water pipe, a silver liquid begins to seep out. The metal and electronic products infected by the liquid, their internal circuits and parts melt rapidly, deform, reshape, and finally completely change into another form. Silently, the entire building is covered with this liquid robot. Although the appearance has not changed, its internal structure and components are undergoing earth-shaking changes. The employees of Stark Industries looked around in panic, filled with an inflated silver gel, and even with machinery and powerful firearms, they couldn't tear it apart. There's a riot in Stark Square, and the Stark building next to it has also been invaded. We've got a lock on someone in the satellite. Director, you have to take a look. Agent Hill hurriedly handed over the projector screen. Nick did not know how long it had been since he last saw Agent Hill in such a panic. Even the countdown to the sun's explosion did not make her this panicked. When he received the projection, he was still in the mood to be curious, but when he saw the back view of Chun-Ang stepping into the Stark building, his heart skipped a beat. He silently repeated the word F***CK 6 or 7 times in his heart. If only Bruce was here. Nick sighed. He's the best scholar in the country who studies gamma-ray detection, as well as the strongest warrior. Although Stark is also excellent, he's more focused on building weapons. Now we need both the Tesseract and the damn Loki's conspiracy. We need to solve the solar crisis, and we also need to figure out why that person appeared in the Stark building. I don't even know what's most important. Is it the solar crisis? Or is it Dr. Doom who made it? There should be a clue that links all of this together. Eltech analyzed. It's impossible that there's no connection between all of this. Nick muttered to himself, clue. Yes, clue. The clue of the battle that happened on Neptune is Dr. Doom and his enemies. They caused the solar crisis, but Dr. Doom returned to Earth from Neptune and went to the Stark building. This is a complete clue. Then there's Loki. He stole the Tesseract and attracted the Asgardians and human warriors from the parallel world. We all know that he has a conspiracy. Thor told us that the Tesseract is a door that opens the barrier between us and the parallel universe. Then there's Bruce's escape, and we don't know who helped him. There are 2 key figures in all of this, Dr. Doom and Loki. They're the core of 2 crises. The other 2 are the Tesseract and Dr. Doom's enemies. We still need a key to help us connect the 4 core clues and connect the 2 lines. Only then can we understand the cause and effect. Maybe we've found the key. Agent Hill looked up in shock. She pointed to the projector and said, Thor has found a location of the Tesseract. It's in the Stark building. At this time, Chun-Ang had arrived at the top floor of the Stark building. Dr. Eric, who was controlled by Loki, was debugging the portal of the Tesseract. Hawkeye was protecting him. Out of the instinct of an agent, he did not appear in conspicuous places. Instead, he hid in a relatively remote, sniping point and monitored the entire top floor of the building day and night. From his perspective, he could see most of the roads. If someone tried to take advantage of the few blind spots, they would be blown to pieces by a hidden landmine. He noticed the elevator the moment it appeared. The alloy bow was aimed at the elevator door. As long as there was a gap the width of a palm, Hawkeye could clearly see who was inside and decide whether to send the mechanical arrow into the person's brain in the next second. But the way Chenong opened the door was more special. The silver metal wires weaved into a flat and soft blanket under his feet and quickly spread in the air. It quickly covered the space on the top floor of the building in front of Hawkeye. The alloy bow in Hawkeye's hand was accidentally touched by this silver, flocculent material. It quickly melted into a bundle of metal wires and tied his hand. The alloy arrow on his back also silently melted, sticking close to his body, using sharp metal wires to bind his joints and muscles. Even the slightest movement would leave behind bloody marks. This was not the first time Hawkeye faced Chenong, but it was the first time he faced Chenong alone. Dr. Eric had no power to resist. He just waved his weapon symbolically and was controlled by Skynet. Then, Chenong dispelled the blue in his pupils. The doctor was stunned for a moment. "What happened to me?" "You're controlled by Loki." Chenong walked in front of the Tesseract and looked at the blue cube inside the energy shield. He didn't even turn his head as he spoke. "Oh my God, the space door has been activated." Before Dr. Eric had time to say anything else, he rushed to the Tesseract. "The door is about to open. I can't close the door by myself. I need to contact S.H.I.E.L.D." Chapter 232. Chenong stood on the high platform of the Stark building, looking down at New York City under the night sky. This high platform faced the east, and a long eave protruded from the inside to the outside. On both sides of the corridor, there were mechanical hands that dismantled the metal armor. Every day, Iron Man would remove his armor here. Chenong moved a chair and sat here. He could see most of New York City. Shaking the wine that he took out from the bar next to him, Chenong looked a little more human. From the beginning of taking NZT-48 until now, the word emotion was a little distant from him. Along the way, he took drugs, transformed, practiced, and learned. He was getting closer and closer to the truth, but he was getting further and further away from human nature. When he first obtained his ability, Chenong still wanted to enjoy luxury and indulge in the illusion of money and money. But when he really sat here with Stark's collection of wine, he could feel that it was even more boring. This was not a process of alienation and loss, but more like a kind of growth, just like a child growing up and losing interest in candy and toys. What used to be vigilant and fearful seemed to be nothing more than a smile of innocence and ignorance today. Sitting here, he could deeply feel the future, the present, and the past. They were closely connected through a kind of pivot, and he could feel the ordinary and somewhat stupid version of himself in the past. The ordinary is me, and the ordinary is also me. The one with flesh and blood and feelings in the past is me, and the one who is not stagnant in everything now is also me. It was like an earthworm that had passed through countless planes and countless times. In a plane of life, only the smallest ring of the earthworm could be seen, and it would be considered a complete existence. But every part of the earthworm's body was it, and it was a real and complete part of its existence. The doubts and feelings that existed in the past were real, and they were a part of Chenong. Now, this completely unfamiliar Chenong was also real, and it was also a part of this existence. Just like the earthworm's body sliding across a plane, the earliest ring disappeared, and it was replaced by another ring, but the earthworm did not change. It was close to the time when the space gate would open. The gamma-ray fluctuations in the void are becoming more and more obvious, and Chenong has seen S.H.I.E.L.D.'s helicarrier through Skynet. 3 huge battleships in the shape of an aircraft carrier are suspended over New York City. This time, the mothership was not as simple as it was in the movies. The firepower around it was strong enough. The surveillance system was even more thorough. The 4 huge anti-gravity engines gave it excellent power, and the well-designed aerodynamic shape also had an excellent stealth ability. With these three motherships, the UA Air Force could fight against the coalition forces of all the other countries on Earth. Unfortunately, if the opponent was someone from outside Earth. You want to see? Even the other forces on Earth believed that this was purely the wishful thinking of Earth's technology tree. Weapons were built on the basis of intelligence. In the face of other technology trees, or even technological factors, this thing was a large target. It would not consider the mage's arbitrary door, teleportation, Asgard's rainbow gate, the Communist Alliance's short-distance space wave, or the God's particle ineffectiveness field. High-energy gravitational wave, space vibration bullet. There were also three giants with psychic abilities, the Professor's psionic storm, Yuri's mind control, and Thanos' mind gem. The mutants had endless abilities, and there were 100 ways to make it impossible to survive. In the core area of the space-time carrier, Loki sat in a transparent cage. Father received an inquiry from S.H.I.E.L.A., which was 100 times more humiliating to him than Ron digging out his eyes. Thor looked at his brother angrily. I never thought that this day would come. I would see you in a mortal prison. Then you will give the mortals an answer for the murder of hundreds of mortals. Asgard's face has been lost by you alone. A god sentence for murder. You have made us a big joke in the 9 realms. You are still so stupid. Thor. Loki smiled indifferently. Your punishment has not been completed. Odin needs you. Even if you're still that idiot with a brain full of muscles, doesn't he have time to train you? Loki. Thor's iron fist slammed heavily on the transparent wall between the two. Idiot. You're still putting on airs in front of them. Even Odin knows that we are no longer gods. Loki sneered. They're 100 times smarter than you. They can imprison me in this cage. They destroyed our old enemies and sent the frost giants to hell. They are colder than the frost giants, crueler than the dark elves, and crazier than the dwarves. You actually call them mortals? So you're going to conquer them alone? Thor sneered. Since you were so afraid of them, why are you still so bold? Loki said in a chanting tone. Because I have an army. A powerful army that you can never imagine, and the support of an amazing existence. No matter how cruel humans are, they're only objects of my conquest. And you, Thor, are just a frog at the bottom of a well in Asgard. You can be a country lord, but I will be the conqueror of the earth, and even this star field. Where is your army? Captain America came out from behind Thor and stared at Loki. Little bug hiding in the corner. Have you finally come out? Loki laughed. I know what you want to ask, but it's too late for you. The Rubik's Cube has been opened. You hid the Rubik's Cube in the Stark building. You used it to open the door to other planets, didn't you? Captain America was not fooled by Loki's appearance and still focused on the core of the problem. Humans. Cruel, crazy, evil, greedy existences. You can always surprise me, but your good luck ends here. You can never imagine what kind of enemy you will face next. Surrender is the kindest choice I can give you. You think everything is under your control? Captain America shook his head and said, to be honest, S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't care what you are going to do. Alien army? Rubik's Cube? We care about it when we are in a good mood, but now we don't care about it at all. He looked into Loki's eyes, and his oppressive eyes made Loki uncomfortable. I came here to ask you, do you know someone? It's time. Chinong looked at the clock on the wall and said to the professor, it's hard to stop me from doing anything in your current state. Are you here to watch the show? Even if I go all out, can I change anything? The professor said, I'm here to see the people you've really chosen. I want to see what kind of magic does the spark of civilization that you want to cultivate have, and is it worth it for you to change the world into what it is now? Chapter 233. Near dawn, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s helicarrier was approaching the Stark building. Chun-Ong opened the elevator of the building and drove everyone out. He stood on the platform of the Iron Man armor and watched the sun rise in the distance. The professor focused most of his thoughts on the body that Chun-Ong had prepared for him. Chun-Ong looked at the huge artificial object above his head that reflected the first ray of sunlight and said to him, we, the people behind the scenes, should get out of the way. Leave the stage to the young people. The professor shook his head and sighed. Are you ready to start? All the contradictions have accumulated to an inevitable level. When Loki opens the door, it will be the first shot. The seeds of two worlds have been planted, and it's time to harvest the fruit. At the same moment, on the helicarrier, under the heavy surveillance of Captain America, Nick, Hill, and others, Loki disappeared from the prison where he was imprisoned. He can't have gone far. We injected a liquid robot into his body, and the location shows that he hasn't gone far. Nick said angrily, "What? You injected this thing into my brother's body?" Thor grabbed Nick and asked. Nick glanced at him coldly. "He is a wanted criminal by S.H.I.E.L.D. We have the right to do anything to him. If you stop me again, I'll take care of you too." Nick tightened Thor's collar and said coldly, "Don't talk to me about Asgard. If you talk to me like that, I'll answer. Asgard, the United States of America, has slaughtered more races than your entire population." With that, he stared at Thor with his only eye and sneered. "Listen to me? Alien monkey? Director, you can't say that." Hill hurriedly came up to dissuade him. "Of course I can." Nick smiled grimly. "It's not racist for a black man to say that." Loki, who had taken his scepter, slowly walked into the Stark building. No one stopped him along the way, and he smoothly entered the heavily guarded elevator. Along the way, he can see the traces of Stark Industries employees leaving in a hurry. Loki has some doubts in his heart, but there are so many unexpected things on the Earth that this is nothing. As long as the Chitauri army was fine, he was not afraid of anything. This kind of confidence was not only for himself, but also for him to dominate countless galaxies. The confidence of the Thanatos, who had conquered countless races, was the confidence of the Thanatos' subordinates. The confidence of the Thanatos' ruthless, bloody, and terrifying rule, and the confidence of the Chitauri, who had passed by. Earth was mysterious and eccentric. All of these strange things, the feeling of being powerless and the manipulator behind the scenes, would vanish in the face of such a terrifying conquest. These messy things that grew in this crappy corner of the Earth would vanish in a thin air. All of them would be annihilated in the face of Rocky's grandiose oppression. Damned Earth bumpkins, damned S.H.I.E.L.D., and the Avengers, and those damned messy things. What is Skynet? Doomsday? Apocalypse? For horsemen? Ancient civilization? Whatever strange things you are, you can all die for me. Just a small Earth, a worm-like thing in the universe. I will use my boots to crush them like a bug. Loki's mood was gloomy, and the cosmic magic cube and the teleportation device wrapped in the blue energy shield were a little happy. He has never suffered such a big loss, and it was in the hands of a group of Earth humans that he looked down upon. Loki tidied up his appearance and showed the calm smile of having everything under control again. "Tawny!" Bruce flashed out of a dark corner and called out to Iron Man, who flew down from the helicarrier. "Dr. Bruce?" Tawny looked carefully on both sides, and when he saw that no one was around, he whispered to Bruce, "Congratulations on coming to the world. When did you come? Why didn't you look for me?" S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't like me. For them, it may be a better ending for me to be locked in that meteorite. I'm tired of being guarded against and suspected. Now I can control myself. I just want to live an ordinary life." Bruce said calmly, "The professor rescued me, and he told me something, and I think it's necessary to let you know." Iron Man wisely kept silent at the beginning of Bruce's words, but at the end, Tony asked in surprise, "What is it?" "The cause of all problems. The push and the answer are related to a name, which we are not unfamiliar with in S.H.I.E.L.D. As confidential files, Apocalypse. Never forget Apocalypse." Bruce took one last deep look at Tawny and turned to leave. "Wait." Tawny stopped him. "You don't want to leave like this, do you? I'm going to pursue the life I want." "Tawny, you will bless me, right?" Bruce laughed. "Of course." Tawny immediately shook his head and said, No. You can't just leave. The world needs you. The sun above our heads is about to explode, and Loki has opened the door to alien invasion. Bruce, we need you. This is the last time for world peace." Tawny made a gesture. "Can you?" Bruce looked embarrassed. Just as Tawny felt disappointed, he laughed and patted Tawny on the shoulder and said, "I'll help you this time. the last time. When it's over, I'll find a place to live in seclusion. The next moment, a beam of light rose from not far away. It's the Stark building. Iron Man flew into the air. Loki is moving. I'll go see. Roar. Bruce tore his clothes and turned into a huge Hulk. He climbed the nearby tall buildings and ran towards the beam of light. He did not lose his mind. Under the control of Bruce's personality, Hulk was more than 10 times smarter. He easily walked through the urban jungle and approached the target agilely. His speed was not slower than Stark. Standing at the top of the building, Loki looked down at the Avengers who followed him and controlled the portal behind him to open the final program. The Tesseract cube shook slightly, and the energy that had been accumulated for a long time smoothed out the distorted space of this universe. Through the four-prism device, a set of special coordinates hidden in the Tesseract cube was opened. The portal shook slightly, and a huge amount of energy disappeared instantly. Strange? Why is the load of the portal close to collapse? It shouldn't be so difficult to connect to planet Chitauri, right? Could it be that those idiots broke the equipment on the other side again? Loki was puzzled. Loki. Tani floated in front of Loki and looked at him coldly. To be continued. Chapter 234. The Chitauri's counterattack was not slow. 3 hours after the Alliance took over planet Chitauri, there were already troops stationed in the nearby star sector launching a tentative attack. The Republic was destructively extracting the core materials of the planet. Scarlet magma was being extracted from the veins of the planet's mantle like fresh blood, decomposing into energy and heavy nuclear materials in the nuclear furnace. Large amounts of metals were purified, cooled, and processed into large amounts of basic materials, which were then rapidly converted into war reserves. The development of autonomous machines gave the Alliance's industrial capability the foundation to increase exponentially. The only thing that limited their industrial capabilities was their material reserves. Therefore, the Allies almost dismantled the entire planet. Large areas of the continental shelf were flipped open. Hundreds of kilometers of rock strata were crushed by huge drills. Magnetic centrifuges were used to separate different atomic elements. Planet Chitauri was changing shape and disappearing. Only 3 hours later, the Chitauri Vanguard troops only saw the planet's skeleton on their home planet. What replaced it was a space defense system formed by countless layers of space extensions, battleships and motherships, floating cannons, armed satellites, and endless invading armies. Among them were clones and humans wrapped in mechanical suits, kinetic skeletons, and space bubbles, as well as a large number of war and industrial robots. The war was intense. The Republic activated the gravity well defense system to block the Chitauri fleet outside the solar system, while the robots and Black Star troopers fought with the landing troops of the Chitauri. The Soviet Black Star troopers moved quickly on the surface with their mechanical suits. The space bubble and tractor beam system in this area were destroyed by the Chitauri in the last attack, so the troopers could only move forward on foot. The team was made up of 5 Black Star troopers, and one of them was a combat engineer. He was responsible for controlling more than 50,000 Terminator robots and 10 units of nanoworms. Combat engineers needed the protection of their teammates to survive on the battlefield. Other than that, the team also had a military commander, Commissar Kajanov. However, he didn't need protection. In fact, the Commissar's combat ability was multiple times that of a normal Black Star trooper. This was because they had an iron will to fight. For the Black Star troopers, the will to fight was their life force, their combat ability, and their attack power. Their modified biological and mechanical organs made them almost immortal as long as their will was strong enough. Kajanov had lost 3 arms, 6 legs, and half of his body several times, including his lower body and the right half of his body. But even if half of his brain was blown off by the Chitauris, he would not be able to escape. Under the control of the biochip, he had also slaughtered 60 Zetarians with his bare hands, and the Soviets were still unable to determine whether Comrade Kadanov was dead or alive. Comrade Turgenev. Commissar Kadanov crushed the skull under his feet took out the anesthetic tobacco in his mouth and said, "How far are we from the three-phase portal?" "Less than 50 kilometers, Comrade Commissar." Turgenev looked at the projected map in his hand and said, "We are close to the active zone of the Chitauri. Because of the interference of the portal, our comrades in China can't expand the dimensional bubble defense system here. The Chitauri bastards are good at finding this kind of loophole." "Yeah, cunning alien bastards. If it weren't for the fact that China's space technology is more advanced than theirs, our casualties would be much greater. The Chitauris at the space gate are constantly dying. The corpses have piled up to 3 meters high. Hurry up and pull the space gate back. Comrades, we can kill those alien bastards again." Kadynov waved his hand. Hurrah! Even though there were only 5 of them, their cheers were like thousands of soldiers and horses. The team's movement speed was not slow. Their power suits were equipped with gravitational ropes, which made it easy to move around the planet. This was also an important project between the Republic and the Soviets. According to the requirements of the Soviet Black Star troopers, gravitational ropes were widely used and convenient, including as weapons. Under the protection of a new alloy shell of the power suits, the Black Star troopers flew at a speed that broke the sound barrier. Very soon, they saw the three-phase portal. A flash of bright red floated high above the corpses in front of the portal. The Chitauri corpses and burning metal wreckage crashed into the horrible snake-shaped aircraft. The wet pile was below. The blood and internal organs made the red flag brighter. As they got closer, the pungent smell of corpses and burning metal wafted over. Fortunately, every Black Star trooper was familiar with this smell. They stepped on the metal wreckage and corpses and approached the portal. The air was filled with high radiation and high temperature. It burned the nerves of the Black Star troopers through the biochemical lungs. The pain was accompanied by excitement, and it lifted their spirits. "There seems to be a change in the portal. The density of Tyra particles around us has increased," Turgenev warned. "Let's not worry about that for now. Quickly install the space beacon. Our comrades from China are waiting for us. No matter what the Chitauri are planning, with our comrades from China's hyperspace support, we don't have to worry about not having reinforcements and a way out." Commissar Kadynov quickly fixed a few metal shuttles. Soon, nanoworms swarmed over and wrapped around the metal shuttles. Watching the metal shuttles disappear on the surface, Kadynov heard a scream beside his ear. "Commissar, look behind you." A blinding light beam shot out from the direction of the portal. The violent energy wave caused the surroundings to shake violently. The energy spread out quickly with the space around them at a low to medium frequency. Even with the physical condition of the Black Star troopers, they felt extremely uncomfortable. Kadynov vaguely saw a few blurry shadows in the center of the strong light. He shouted, "Hurrah!" and asked his comrades to find his position and direction. Then he took out a small, strong gravity grenade and threw it at the center of the portal. Behind the portal, a young man in golden armor looked at the opposite side with a face full of disbelief. He raised his scepter blankly and touched the air on the opposite side gently, as if he was trying to expose a clumsy trick. The gravity grenade was affected by the opening of the dimensional door, and the explosion missed the young man by a little. The things piled up outside the dimensional door, corpses, internal organs, broken spaceship debris, radiation, and metal fragments flew at the young man's face, and the people behind him were also affected. He wiped his face. His face was as white as a sheet of paper. He asked helplessly, "What's going on? What happened?" Chapter 235. P.S. There are some logical errors in this chapter, and it's too lame. I'm not satisfied and have to rewrite it. Want? Everyone, take a look first. I'll replace this version with the rewritten version tomorrow. What happened here? Why did Loki open this door? Black Widow couldn't help but frown. What exactly are you going to do? Thor couldn't help but interrupt the dazed Loki. He grabbed his collar and shook him. What do you want to do? You said you want to invade Earth. You said you have an army? Then what's your scheme for bringing us here? Where did you open the door to? Loki weakly let go of the scepter in his hand and said in a daze, "This is impossible. This is impossible." Captain America grabbed Thor's hand and stopped him from swinging his angry iron fist at his brother. He said to him, "Thor, your brother may not know what happened. I believe he's not pretending to be in such a daze. Something must have happened here that he couldn't have imagined." Thor checked the traces on the ground. The blood is very fresh. It seems that the battle didn't last long. On the roof of the Stark building, a group of America's most outstanding heroes and a stunned villain looked at the mountain of corpses and sea of blood opposite the door and fell into unspeakable shock and silence. The atmosphere was really a little strange. "It's aliens," Stark said to Nick. Only S.H.I.E.L.D. could still carry out a clear investigation here. They gathered a body and began to analyze it from all aspects, looking for all useful and useless information. Loki and the other heroes, who knew more, felt their hearts turn into a mess. Countless strange and bizarre thoughts intertwined in their minds like a tangled knot without a thread. No one here was an idiot. Smart people would always think more. There are about 50,000 corpses here. Considering the traces left by high-energy weapons and energy-converged strikes on the wreckage, there may be more dead. The other party didn't leave any bodies. Maybe they kept them after winning. It's also possible that they didn't have any casualties, Nick added. He looked at Tawny as if to say, "Is that what you mean?" Tony answered him with silence and began to tell him something new. "Judging from the wreckage at the scene," he said, "both of their technologies are far superior to ours. Thor told us that those corpses should belong to the Zutari. They're a famous war race in the universe. They are very powerful. The wreckage left behind by the Chitauri also proves this point. The metal used in the spaceship is of a very high grade, dozens of times higher than our company's products. This was definitely the standard of an interstellar civilization. Their weapons are very exquisite, and they are far from us in terms of energy utilization. With all due respect, if the army Loki is talking about is them, we are really lucky. Since you've said so much, can you tell me who their enemy is?" Nick opened his arms and gestured to the crowd. "I can see which side is the real threat. There aren't many clues at the scene. They cleaned it up very cleanly, and Thor also said that he couldn't think of anyone who could do this." At this time, Thor interrupted the two and interrupted, "It's not that no other civilization can do it, but it's not certain. There isn't even a suspect. This is not normal." Hulk glanced at him and suddenly asked, "Why is it not normal? This universe is orderly. Except for isolated interstellar civilizations like Earth, most civilizations and races live in an orderly cosmic environment. We understand each other, exchange information, communicate, and form a world of known civilizations. But there are things outside the known here. I can't see those familiar shadows, and all I see are strange things. Completely without a trace of familiarity. So I can't doubt that this is not normal. There must be something normal, something outside the known world involved." Things had reached a dead end here. Time was too short, and there was too little information, so only Loki could understand the truth here. He was silent, and his gloomy temperament seemed to be pregnant with something terrible. But Captain America had to make him speak. What was happening here made everyone feel a sense of urgency. "What are you hiding?" Loki looked at Captain America sitting in front of him. His eyes made Captain America feel strange, as if Loki was not looking at him, but looking at another existence through him. After a long time, Loki said, "Do you know? You humans don't actually know yourselves. I admit that something unexpected happened, and I lost. But you didn't win. From the portal to the farthest point of everyone's sight, the corpses spread for dozens of miles. There were no less than tens of thousands of corpses buried under the ruins, burned by high temperature, and vaporized by high energy, and countless more. The flesh and blood converged into an ocean, and the dark red color made people's hearts palpitate. Iron Man and Hulk were shocked speechless when they saw this scene. Even Captain America, who had experienced the bloodiest and darkest World War II, found it difficult to look directly at this scene of naked malice toward life. Other heroes who lived in peaceful times couldn't face such a scene. Loki was on the verge of madness. He used the psychic scepter to search the memories of the Chitauri corpses in anger and fear. Iron Man and the others looked at the flag flying on the mountain of corpses, dumbfounded. They had all imagined the situation on the other side of the portal. Some were strange, but none of them were strange to this extent. A country that had already perished on Earth, a flag that had been buried in history, was now openly flying on an alien planet. In such a strange scene, no one knew what to say. Until they saw the figures not far away, everyone suddenly became alert. Those silhouettes looked very tall and big. When they got closer, Tony could see that they were wearing ferocious-looking metal-powered mechas. Their fierce and aggressive designs made people feel nervous. The leading mecha warrior opened his helmet to reveal a human face full of scars. The bionic mecha glanced at them and said in Miyasophic accented English, "Warning, you are entering the Soviet defense zone. Raise your hands for inspection." The psychic scepter was pulled out from the corpse. Only then did Loki recover from the shock of reading the memories. The Soviet Black Star trooper pointed a gun at his head. He knew these soldiers, and he was familiar with the weapons in their hands. In those memories, the Zetarians had died of cerebral hemorrhage made by this weapon. He also knew that if he hesitated for a moment, these soldiers would throw the point mass generator in their hands. The gravity of the point mass, which was dozens of times stronger than the nuclear gravity of the white dwarf star, would tear him into a cluster of atoms and throw him into some unknown dimension. That's true for those barbarians, but not for me. The psychic scepter in Loki's hand glowed faintly. To be continued. Chapter 236. I'll report what you said to my superiors, but for safety reasons, I hope you'll be in a non-hostile state for the rest of the journey, Commissar Kadanoff warned them. With their human appearance, the Avengers wouldn't be regarded as enemies by the Black Star troopers. It had only been 3 years since they entered the era of the Communist Alliance, and the gap between the countries and nations of the Alliance had become very small. In an era of extreme material abundance, humans had become more rational and upright. Although they were facing the Americans, whom they disliked the most, Kadanoff still maintained goodwill. In the interstellar era, a human regime wouldn't be their enemy. We're still at war with the Zetaris, and we're cautious about contacting most aliens, Kadanoff explained to the Avengers. Kadanoff explained to the Avengers as he led a group of people to the main base to report the abnormalities of the portal to his superiors. Nick stayed at the other end of the portal with the information they had obtained. It was conceivable that the whole world would be shocked again. But this time, it would really change the structure of the world. A parallel universe with the same structure as Earth, and 3 communist countries with the ability to colonize the universe and defeat the alien army of this universe. It was hard to overestimate the impact of this on the whole world. Just this difference was enough to make the President of the United States scratch his head, not to mention that there were 3 major forces on Earth that shared the same culture and origins as the 3 alliances. Redefining the relationship between China, Russia, and the European Union was also a big problem. Losing its position as the hegemon was a foregone conclusion. How to maintain the international status of the United States? Nick needed to consider more. Along the way, the Avengers were relatively silent. Traces of war could be seen everywhere. Just some insignificant ruins left behind shocked and worried Captain America. Are we approaching the base through teleportation? Captain America couldn't help but ask. He didn't feel any obvious spatial changes along the way. He just went in and out of some underground fortifications, large bases and land war vehicles, but the outside environment was constantly changing. The angle of the stars in the sky also changed greatly, giving him some vague guesses. Commissar Kadanoff didn't hide anything. We're applying for a 2-phase dimensional orbit. There are a lot of security checks on the way to the base, so we need to make a transfer point. You said you've built a teleportation system? Thor couldn't help but question. I don't doubt your ability, but the portal and the teleportation system are 2 different things. Even in Asgard, the Bifrost is an unprecedented achievement, a great miracle that can't be replicated. Your human lifespan is not long enough for you to progress in the study of space. We as guardians have a lifespan of 5,000 years. In terms of spatial knowledge, only the most ancient people in the divine realm can master it. All of them have experienced the most beautiful learning for nearly 4,000 years. Only then can I master it on the final journey of my life. You haven't even touched the surface of spatial knowledge in 100 years, Thor said with certainty. In fact, I spent 2,000 years and still couldn't learn it. With your lifespan, it's already a miracle that you can open a portal. That's because you're stupid, Thor. The captive Loki laughed at him mercilessly. Your brain is full of muscles, so you can't learn. When he turned to Katanov, his face was very solemn. This is indeed a remarkable achievement. Your spatial system is very efficient, and the energy fluctuations are very small. Their adaptability is also very strong. The teleportation process is like walking. The Rainbow Bridge was like shoving a man through a pipe the size of a bowl. It was incredibly smooth, and the spatial fluctuations were incredibly small. Although it was only a glimpse, Loki could feel the horror of the human civilization he had encountered this time. Asgard's Rainbow Bridge was one of the most remarkable achievements in the entire universe, and the pride of the people in the divine realm. It was built in ancient times and could not be replicated. It was the pinnacle of Asgard civilization, but compared to the teleportation system used by humans in other realms, it was too low level. Human technology in the teleportation system was simply terrifying. Unlike Thor, whose brain was full of muscles, Loki learned spatial magic and technology better. He could see the Republic's groundbreaking achievements in space technology. The teleportation process took place in a spatial bubble. Each spatial bubble was an independent space with a radius of 200 meters and a height of 50 meters. They were teleported along with the entire independent space, which was the key to why the teleportation process was so smooth. But Asgard couldn't imitate it. Not to mention the difficulty of the transition from teleporting creatures to teleporting independent spaces. Loki knew that it was no less difficult than the breakthrough from teleporting inanimate matter to teleporting living beings. Just the technology of spatial bubbles was a natural moat for Asgard. Creating an independent, three-dimensional space in the universe was only one dimension away from destroying the universe. With spatial bubble technology, humans could carry a large amount of material and even teleport an entire planet, as long as they could create such a large spatial bubble. Humans could ignore attacks that couldn't interfere with space. Even if they could interfere with space, it would be meaningless if they couldn't break through the defense of the spatial bubble. It's hard to imagine that this was done by humans. Loki lowered his head and smiled, his eyes unreadable. He said playfully, I even suspect that you are not the same kind of human beings as them. Maybe you were created by God, and they evolved from monkeys. Otherwise, there's no way to explain the difference between the two civilizations. Do you believe that bloodline determines all this? Commissar Katanov asked Loki bluntly. If this is the case, then you're undoubtedly an inferior species. It took hundreds of thousands of years for humans to go from primitive society to bronze civilization, but it only took 3,000 years for humans to go from Bronze Age to industrial civilization, and it took less than 2 centuries to achieve another breakthrough and enter the information age. Now we have achieved the era of the big universe, a superdimensional civilization, and you are still trapped in a single universe, unable to even interfere with the timeline. Who is the superior species? It goes without saying. We are only separated by the distance of rebirth from the fire, only the difference of facing despair once. Katanov looked at the Avengers and said firmly, you can never imagine what kind of training we have gone through to break free from that nightmare. Hundreds of millions of humans live forever in the light. When the sun goes dark, death lives forever. Despair suddenly comes, and the apocalypse falls from the sky. War leads to famine, and plague brings death. The angel blows the horn and announces the end of the world. Some flee the earth, and some turn into ashes. Some return to the source sea, and some become ghosts. The last people leave that world and wander without a home. Chapter 237. The faint smell of blood in Kadanoff's words made the Avengers' hair stand on end. It wasn't that they didn't understand the meaning of these words. On the contrary, a lot of information was familiar to them. Bone-chilling familiarity. The moment the word left Kadanoff's mouth, the Avengers almost screamed. The nightmarish feeling lingered around them again. Hearing those familiar names and terms, everyone could feel an irresistible, turbulent undercurrent quietly surging around them. Captain America's face was completely heavy. His brows furrowed like a mountain, and he couldn't help but tighten the shield in his hand. Kadanoff took them to the periphery of an underground base. The surrounding metal walls had a soft white light, very close to natural light. When they got closer, they could feel the natural breathing coming from the metal surface. Above them was a transparent, floating window that could see the outer space of the Chitauri planet. Seeing this, the Avengers all knew that the Chitauri were almost completely at a disadvantage and had no power to fight back. Otherwise, a civilization addicted to war would not have the mind to set up these things. The huge wreckage that was visible to the naked eye also proved this. Black Widow couldn't help but touch the porthole, her nails scratching the projection of the huge battleships. The large spaceship of the Chitauri looked like a living creature. It was the shape of a sea dragon. It was very ferocious, with their barbaric and cruel style. It looked very visually impactful, especially the wreckage that was almost destroyed. They were very conspicuous outside the satellite and could be seen clearly from the atmosphere. The metal shell of the spaceship was almost twisted out of shape. The strong gravity almost folded them. Some looked like they had been trampled flat, and some looked like they were twisted into a ball. That's solid, right? Loki suddenly turned his head and asked. Black Widow was surprised. What? I said that it's solid. Loki repeated with a smile. I know the Chitauri better than you. After all, they used to be my allies. The Chitauri's combat ability is very strong. Such a battleship is not the iron shell of you humans. It is equivalent to a solid metal ball. The weapons in the War Legion under the command of Thanos are countless times stronger than you can imagine. There are many data that you can't even imagine. Through synergistic external stress technology, the strength of the metal structure supporting the spaceship can reach the level of a white dwarf. Kajinov looked at him in surprise, as if he was sizing up his value. After a while, he nodded and said, Yes, even we haven't mastered this technology. It's an advanced application of the 4 fundamental forces. Our research team is still working on it. Quite a lot. The highest political commissar has approved your teleportation rights. Follow me. The Avengers followed him into the base. When Black Widow passed by Loki, she brushed past his ear and asked casually, Since the performance of that metal material is so outstanding, why don't you use it? What level of power was it that destroyed it? Loki whispered in her ear, That level of power is meaningless in your mathematical system. Do not measure us with your shallow thoughts. Mortal, what we do is beyond your comprehension. Even a basic mathematical unit would take you another 10 years to understand. Of course, this is the speed of us as Guardians. As if bursting a bubble, the Avengers arrived at a more spacious field. The buildings and city structure were so huge that they couldn't see the end. It was vivid and real, and the whole city was full of fantasy. That feeling just now was a space bubble. Black Widow looked back curiously, only to see the other half of the city. The underground base behind them had disappeared without a trace. Loki laughed in a low and mellow voice, stirring up Black Widow's thoughts. That's not it. The base we passed just now, it's part of the space bubble. Their technology is already enough to build a city inside. In fact, we are just moving around in the space bubble. The entire planet's space has been divided into 2 parts, connected by a group of space bubbles as a 2-part transverse labyrinth. The Chitauri want to break through from that half of the planet. They have to pass through this space structure. The independent spaces here can be closed at any time, and then Loki made a gesture of popping a bubble. The entire space and everything in it will disappear without a trace. To the Avengers' surprise, there were many people in the city, and most of them were not soldiers. It seemed that one Chitauri was not enough to make them enter a state of war. Two young Asian teenagers looked at the group of strangers curiously. When they saw the Iron Man armor, their eyes suddenly lit up. Tony was very familiar with this kind of look, and he enjoyed it very much. He waved his hand, feeling good about himself, and adjusted the Iron Man armor on his body to a cooler state. "Stark, you'd better stop showing off." Captain America couldn't help but warn him. "You're jealous that the children love me." Tony didn't care. "Hey, hello, boys." He waved to the two teenagers. "Hello." The two teenagers nodded politely. Kadanoff laughed. "It's the boys from China. They should be dismissed. The Republic of China is the pillar of the Communist Alliance. Their soldiers are very powerful, and their technology is the most advanced in the Alliance. They lead the entire Communist Alliance in the fields of space physics and energy physics." "I like physics," Tani said confidently. "Can you show me your armor?" The taller boy ran up to Tani and asked him shyly, "Can you show me your armor?" Tani felt good about showing off in the unfamiliar environment of an alien planet. He struck a pose that highlighted his tall image and said to the two, "Do you want me to come closer?" "No, no need." The boy waved his hand. "Just stand there for a while." It was the first time Tani had heard such an answer. Under normal circumstances, men couldn't help but come up and touch his armor. No man could resist the temptation of this kind of war. Tani had always believed so. He saw the boy stretch out his left hand and press down 50 centimeters away from him. Countless thin blue threads of light wrapped around Tony's body. The blue light, with great penetrating power, swept across Tony's body, making him feel like he was naked in front of a large crowd. A translucent, miniaturized model was constructed by the light and floated in front of the boy. Tani was surprised to find that it was almost the blueprint of the Mark V. The original had been scaled down, and many of the parts that involve high-precision energy and materials were very clear. According to this, even if the original could not be replicated, the Mark V would no longer be a secret. "Thank you," the boy said to Stark happily. Tani turned around and stared at Kadanoff in shock and anger. He didn't care if someone copied him, but he hated being schemed against. There was no doubt that his armor had been replicated. He believed that Kadanoff had deliberately arranged it. Kadanoff understood the look in his eyes and shook his head at him slightly. "I'm afraid you've guessed wrong. What you think we value, we actually don't." The Mark V in the boy's palm had been magnified 10 times and was clearly projected in front of everyone. The cold mutation core is 3 generations behind. Get rid of it. The anti-gravity engine is an old version for near-planetary environments. It can't leave the planet's gravity. It's better to replace it with a retro version of the anti-gravity void field. The outer metal outline. The data of this alloy is very strange. It's not in the database. It's more suitable to use the abnormal microparticle type, HA-992 adamantium. The aerodynamic shape has been submitted to the large database for calculation. The mechanical structure has been submitted to the intelligent brain task and applied for the personal intelligent AI. It's actually a silicon-based material computer. Replace it with a quantum 2 optical brain. In just a few breaths, the blueprint in his palm had changed a large part. Layers upon layers of dazzling virtual blueprints were nested on the model. In the blink of an eye, even Stark couldn't recognize it. As Tani's eyelids twitched wildly, he saw a child less than 10 meters away from him change his blueprint beyond recognition. Then, the child operated on his palm. Request material support. The liquid metal squeezed out from the void between the two of them. The silver solution floated in the air like a pearl. Personal Portable Industrial System Link External Database. Floating light and electricity representing the microforce field constantly emerged from the boy's body. The microforce field energy field composed of controllable high-energy atoms as the core enveloped the silver metal liquid. The light spots constantly swam, finally adjusting the particle structure of the metal with the state of the particle force field. The finished product was printed out in the void with single atoms as the unit. The whole part was formed at once. In just a few minutes, a brand new armor that looked like the Mark V was made. The size and model were completely made according to the boy's figure. Chapter 238. The mechanical armor pieces followed the curve of the human body and wrapped around the boy. The blue and silver metal armor was very modern. It was not as arrogant as Stark's red and gold armor, but it was more elegant and delicate. From the moment the child mobilized the industrial support of the Republic and used the AI atoms to create the steel armor on the blueprint, to the moment the entire armor was formed, most of the people did not even have the time to react. This was because it was beyond their comprehension. Each Tani armor cost more than $200 million and was made by Stark Industries without hesitation. It represented not only Tani's monstrous financial resources, but also Stark Industries' most advanced technology and industrial capability in the world. The highest achievement in the field of energy was the arc reactor. The pinnacle of human power was the anti-gravity engine. The crystallization of Stark Industries' AI in the field of artificial intelligence was Jarvis. These were advanced technologies that even the U.S. government couldn't replicate. It was the fusion of Tani's personal wisdom and Stark Industries' advanced technology. It not only represented the forefront of applied science, but was also a symbol of Stark Industries and the overall industrial strength of the U.S. Even if the blueprints and technology were released to the public, not many countries in the world could make a sample. Maybe Russia could make half of it, and China could make a low-spec version. The whole of Europe would have to unite to make a sample at a high cost. Tony, how much did you quote to the Department of Defense for the Mark V? Black Widow elbowed Stark, who was so surprised that he couldn't close his mouth. $500 million. Stark hadn't recovered yet and stared blankly at the blue and silver armor. $500 million for the Iron Patriot. It's just a modified version of the Mark I, and it's at least 2 generations behind the Mark V. Agent Hill couldn't help but interrupt. She turned to Tani and said, "Now your Iron Patriot is only worth $200 million. We won't spend that much money on a weapon that's already outdated." "How much do you want for the Mark V?" Black Widow asked in Tani's ear. Tani looked at her with a complicated expression and shook his head. "The Mark V is priceless. Come on, you can't monopolize this business anymore. Give me a real price." "It's really priceless. It's a technology verification machine that hasn't been finalized yet. We haven't mastered its production process, so it's impossible for us to industrialize it. It couldn't be a commodity. Naturally, there's no price." Tani looked at the smaller Iron Man armor and said bitterly, "I spent $16.2 billion on Mark V, but 13 days after it came out, it fell behind by a generation." "What's a dollar?" The boy leaned over and asked. "That's our country's currency." "Wait, do you understand what currency is?" Black Widow asked him. The boy shook his head. "I'm a genetically modified human, so my lifespan isn't as long as a normal human's. Today is my first birthday." The boy asked curiously, "I've seen records of currency in history. Do you use it to buy goods?" "Clones." Tani could not help but reveal a horrified expression, although cloning technology was not far from the level of science on Earth. However, a living clone standing in front of them still shocked them. "Yeah, in order to preserve the spark of human civilization after the Great Apocalypse, the government specially formulated the Nuwa Project. After the human living environment suffered a catastrophic disaster, it could be preserved for millions of years until the ecosystem recovered. Genetically modified humans were bred and injected into the memory bank of human civilization. I am the result of the Nuwa Project. Although the project failed, we, who had already been bred in embryos, were still cultivated to replenish the population of the Republic of Republic." The boy did not seem to care about his background. Instead, he looked expectantly at Stark and the others and asked curiously, "I've seen a lot of information about the past in the database. Is the way you treat currency real?" Perhaps he felt that his words were too vague, so the boy tried to express it more tactfully. "Is it the kind of very persistent?" He used an uncertain word that was not so sharp. "Persistent? What you want to say is madness and stupidity." Tani nodded. "That's because you can't see what it represents. Currency is a distribution of power. It's like a kind of authority, the authority to control the entire world. When you have it, it's equivalent to having the power behind it. We use currency to coordinate and distribute goods. It makes our world run reasonably and smoothly. Tani gestured. You may think this is very unfair, but it's closer to the essence of the world. Are you a communist system? Your needs are suppressed by the distribution system. Perhaps you think that some people enjoy extravagance and some people have nothing. This is very unfair, but this is the beauty of the world. Human nature determines all of this. The difference makes the entire world full of vitality, like catfish in a school of sardines, stimulating the development of the entire world. This system is more lovely than the rigid and rotten distribution system. Beautiful. Good wine, luxury cars, and trampolines. Without these, my life would lose half of its meaning. Greed is where human nature is, and those who try to erase human nature, no matter how glorious the banner is, are bound to be cruel and crazy. What we seek is this great flash of freedom that embodies human nature. Freedom is human nature. Tani's tone was proud. He smiled and opened his arms. But the look in Kadanoff's eyes made him feel very strange. You seem to have something to say, sir? China is the most special member of the alliance. The way Kadanoff looked at the Avenger made them feel uncomfortable. It was a mixture of insight and impatience, like a person standing downstream of history, looking down at the old, ridiculous customs of the past. The Republic is not like the Soviet Union or the European Community. They don't even have a distribution system. There are no goods, no currency, and none of the appearances you seek. As long as there is material, they have everything. The personal system can meet most of the needs of China comrades. The production capacity of industry is in the hands of real workers. Every China comrade is a factory, the deepest and most essential combination of workers and production tools. All the products of labor that you can buy with dollars can be produced by them at will. The material they can enjoy is unlimited. Each of them can match the production capacity of a complete industrial country. They are truly free. Your freedom requires money, but they don't. But they don't show no motivation. They don't indulge in enjoyment and extravagance. They don't indulge in material things. The whole society doesn't lose its motivation. On the contrary, they abandon greed, cruelty, cunning, deception, and arrogance and become truly noble. Human nature doesn't seem to be low. After the China comrades liberate themselves and gain true freedom, human nature seems to have become pure and simple. Kadanoff impatiently stopped Captain America, who was about to speak. 3 years ago, no one would have thought that today would come. What you said was regarded as the truth at that time. At that time, we really believed that human nature was immutable, but a scam is still a scam. You try to make us believe that there can be no exploiters in this world, just like the nobles in the Middle Ages tried to make serfs believe that the nobles were protecting them. You use cruel means, shameless deception, anything you can think of to prevent anyone, everyone, from revealing a secret. That is, the world doesn't need you. Serfs don't need nobles, and workers don't need exploiters. It's you who need us. Now, you may still believe in your lies, but the facts will prove that without you, human beings, the world will be a better place.